Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Thursday midday All Hallows Eve edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobler, of course. You're muted.
Keaton Weiss, I haven't seen you since you ran out on us in St. Louis. We were pals. You, me, and Chairman O'Malley. You know what they did to the chairman? They made him eat that pizza. It's not even real cheese.
Oh, you're Snake Plissken. Snake Plissken.
Yeah, Snake Plissken.
I was going to give you more. I thought you were Dan Crenshaw's Grinder date. I was going to give you more credit for originality. I thought that's an obscure choice, but a solid one. Yes, that would have been a great choice. So there you go. That's a well done costume, and it is actually an original costume because
it is. I had to have the shirt custom made and sent to me.
Yeah,
they don't
really?
make these. Yeah, no, they don't.
The shirt. What is it? Is it just a black T-shirt with the sleeves cut off?
It's like a stretchy material, but with the zippers.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see the zippers now. I couldn't see the zippers before. Now I see them. Yeah. I'm the kid friendly.
You're like the attorney in Fear and Loathing.
I do kind of look like the attorney. Yeah. I'm Steve
Dr.
from
Gonzo.
I'm Steve from Minecraft. We're all being Minecraft characters. My kids are big into the Minecraft. So I'm the Jack Black guy. So this is my hair. And I think for actually Halloween, I'm going to put some gray highlights in it. But yeah, that's gonna be my costume. Virtuoso says, "Are you supposed to be Barry Weiss?" Good one. Yeah. I don't know. Looks good. Now I see the zippers. Now I can get a better sense. And the cigarette. Yeah. The cigarette works too. That's one of those fake Halloween cigarettes.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. I mean, you used to smoke cigarettes.
Those days are over
for a day. So you couldn't.
Those days are over.
You couldn't just do it for the day, right?
I've been thinking about
that. On the wagon.
No, it's funny, man. It's funny. Like, you've never been addicted to anything. When you're a smoker, you're fascinated by the stories of the guy. And almost every smoker who really quits has this fucking story. Yep, one day I put it down, I never picked it up. And you're just fascinated by that. And every time you quit, you hope it's that day for you, and it never is until it is. One day it's that day for you.
Right.
Like I always get asked that. Don't you want it? No. Like one day you're done.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess that makes sense. And that's lucky. That's fortunate. We got 810 filing in here on the YouTube side of things. 245 filing in. Over on Rumble, please smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. It is Film Club night tonight for our supporters. We're doing The Phantom of the Paradise tonight, which is Russ's favorite film of all time. I'll send out the email for that after the stream is over today, because we can only create one Rumble show at a time. But I will do that. Those will come out pretty much right after this show is done. The email's already drafted, so it will not take long. So you should all get that email if you're subscribed at Patreon, Locals, or Substack. So thank you all very much for being here today. Let's smash that like button. Let's work the algorithm for the early show. That's always a huge help on YouTube and on Rumble. Appreciate you all very much for being here. Let's jump right in, and I guess we'll do as serious a show as we can under the circumstances.
Dressed like this. Yeah.
There was a lot of news that, broke yesterday. When you do this for a living, it's always different every time in the sense that, some days, you're struggling to figure out what to cover on a slow news day. And most days you're figuring out what not to cover because it's a huge news day. And there was so much going on that I really did not want to talk about food stamps today because it is October 30th at this stream date, and the benefits are set to expire without the government backstopping them, of course, on Saturday. So I figured, all right, we'll have time to cover this on Sunday when it either happens or doesn't happen. But given the conversation on Twitter last night, I felt we had to cover this today. Last night was really one of the most depressing nights to be scrolling Twitter, really, since they killed all the Palestinian journalists. We used to see all this carnage out of Gaza, which was horribly depressing, and now we don't see that much on X anymore because a lot of the journalists who are documenting that have been killed. But since then, this last night was one of the most depressing nights because you really saw an explosion of peasant-minded buffoonery last night on X. Just like an unbelievable indictment of this country, quite frankly. It was quite upsetting to see. So we're going to get into this a little bit. First, let's just lay down where we are. Food aid for 42 million imperiled by shutdown politics as Trump tests law. Yes, Trump tests laws the way Israelis test ceasefires. Yes, that's a good way to phrase that. Reuters. Nearly 42 million people are set to lose food aid due to the second longest U.S. government shutdown as Democrats and Republicans in Congress continue to blame each other for a weeks-long legislative stalemate. Neither party... What is going on here? All right, then remove it, okay? Oh, we're having trouble streaming to Facebook. All right, then fuck Facebook. Don't bother me.
Yeah, fuck them.
I'm in the middle of something. StreamYard. Oh, Facebook can't connect. All right, Facebook, you're done. Goodbye. Sorry about that. I'll start that over. Nearly 42 million people are set to lose food aid due to the second longest U.S. government shutdown as Democrats and Republicans in Congress continue to blame each other for a weeks-long legislative stalemate. Neither party was showing signs of changing its position days before funding for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as food stamps, is set to lapse beginning on Saturday. The U.S. Department of Agriculture's decision last week not to draw on an emergency fund to pay for part of November's SNAP benefits is splitting senators as Democrats argue the agency is legally required to spend the roughly $5.5 billion in contingency funds to maintain at least a portion of the benefits. The Trump administration is weaponizing hunger as a political bargaining chip, said Senator Jeanne Shaheen of New Hampshire, the top Democrat overseeing food aid funding. When it comes down to it, this is a choice. Republicans say Senate Democrats are responsible for the shutdown because most have voted 13 times against a stopgap bill to reopen the government called a CR, or continuing resolution, to force concessions from the Republican majority on health care issues. So those healthcare issues, by the way, which we'll get into, are the guaranteed doubling of premiums if the ACA subsidies are not renewed as part of a deal to reopen the government. But here is Chris Van Hollen making a speech laying out the Democrats' case.
Sadistic policy. This is a sadistic policy being imposed by Russ Vought and Donald Trump and Republicans, depriving 40 million Americans of food, nutrition assistance to keep paying for their billionaire buddies' tax cuts. I looked up in Webster's the definition of sadism, and the definition is to delight in cruelty. That's really sick, but that's exactly what Donald Trump and Rust Vote and Republicans are doing. They're delighting in cruelty, and they're using 40 million Americans and 16 million of them kids for their perverse purposes at this moment. Our message is pretty simple. You don't have to do it. In fact, the law says you should spend the money to make sure that we feed hungry Americans. So don't do it, and join us, as we've done 7 times now, to vote to reopen the government without giving Donald Trump and Rust Vote a blank check, and also to bring down health care costs that are going through the roof. That's our message.
Yeah, that's their message, and that is what's happening. What's happening is the Republicans are leveraging 40 million people's food stamps against 20 million people's health care, basically. What they're saying is, basically, if you want these 40 million people to get their food stamps, you're going to have to agree to reopen the government without the provision in there that would extend the ACA subsidies. So basically, they're forcing a Sophie's choice. You can either have 40 million people go without food stamps or 20 million people have their health care premiums double, which would set off, like I said, just a tidal wave of shit. Because as their premiums double, the people who hang on to their health care after the people drop out who can't afford the premiums anymore, their premiums go up because the pool shrinks. And once the pool shrinks, everybody's costs go up. And debt increases, bankruptcies increase, consumer spending plummet. Like, it's going to be a nightmare if these ACA subsidies are not renewed. And so what the Republicans are saying is, well, you're going to reopen the government without those subsidies, or 40 million people are not going to get their food stamps. That's why they're choosing not to backstop that program, because they want to turn the heat up onto the Democrats to reopen the government on their terms. The Democrats should vote for a clean CR to open government, and that'll take care of all of these things, said Senator John Hoeven of North Dakota, the top Republican in charge of food aid appropriations. Well, it would take care of SNAP, but the other side of that is that this would happen. So this tweet went kind of viral, thanks, ironically, to Marjorie Taylor Greene, who boosted this with a quote tweet, which we'll get to in a second. So there's a guy named Mark Meredith who is married with 4 kids. So these are the silver plan prices for 2026 for a family of 6. There are 9 options for health insurance in my zip code. Here are the 3 silver plans, starting at $3,655 a month. That's like almost $50,000 a year. What is that, $45,000 a year?
Wow.
So for $3,655.45 a month, you still have to pay a $30 copay for a primary care visit. You still have to pay a $10 copay for medication. You have an $8,600 deductible with an out-of-pocket maximum at $20,300. That's what you get for $3,600 a month for a family of 6. $600 per person. That's almost $50,000 a year. That is what is going to be if these subsidies are not renewed. Marjorie Taylor Greene says this is for self-employed married parents in their 30s with 4 kids. Democrats did this with Obamacare 15 years ago. Well, yes and no. Yeah, I mean, Obamacare did not make things much better because, as you can see, these Obamacare plans are, just unbelievably expensive and shitty. Private healthcare plans were unbelievably expensive and shitty before Obamacare. The criticism of Obamacare is it did not go anywhere near far enough. Not that it happened at all, but that they wrote the law in such a way that kept this perverse incentive structure in place. But anyway.
Right. They didn't do anything to control premiums.
Right. Exactly. Democrats did this with Obamacare 15 years ago, and Johnson says Republicans have a mystery plan that is yet to be revealed to fix it, but no one knows what it is, and they're told to stay home in our districts. Okay, so that's what's happening right now. So that is essentially the dilemma, is that if the Democrats vote to reopen the government without getting ACA subsidies renewed, this is what happens to people's healthcare premiums, which causes, like I said, just mass economic catastrophe. It's not just that the premiums go up. That has ripple effects far and wide. The Republicans are saying, well, if you don't drive these premiums up, 42 million people are going to lose their food stamps. Okay, now, so that's what's going on here, all right? Now, this is what stupidity and dishonesty you're dealing with if you engage on this topic, at least on X. So here is Tim Pool saying, why do I work 16 hours a day and pay half of my income in taxes so that people don't have to work? It makes no sense. Let's take a listen.
More likely to receive welfare. Democrats are substantially more likely to receive welfare benefits than Republicans. So when the Republicans come out and say they're going to give these benefits, they're outright saying we're going to help Democrats win. We're going to take from you, hardworking taxpayer, to give to them who don't. Now, don't get me wrong. There are many people who really do need the assistance, and I respect that, but I don't believe a system should exist that makes it possible for people to not work.
Okay, we're going to pause this for 1 second. Okay, most working age SNAP recipients who are able to work do work, though the exact percentage varies. So 39% of SNAP recipients are children, another 20 are elderly. Of the 41% who are eligible to work, the vast majority of them do. High work rates for those able to work. The majority of SNAP households that include a non-disabled working age adult have someone who works. In a 2023 analysis, 82% of non-disabled working age households without children who receive SNAP had earnings that year. So you think, well, they have children and they use the child to get welfare so they don't have to work, right? No, wrong. Work rates are even higher in households with children. In 2023, 91% of such households had earnings at some point during the year. The reason why you have 42 million people on food stamps is because their bosses don't pay them enough to live when they work. So, of course, it stands to reason that if you have kids, you're going to work and get food stamps because you need a lot more money, not less. Okay, so everything Tim Pool says in this piece is absolute, utter nonsense. But he goes on.
So here's my proposal. How about we pass a bill that in order to fund SNAP benefits, if you are receiving this, you got to work. Right? Why not? There are jobs that
once again, they do. And here, I'll show, because that was a Google AI. So you're going to get people, source, right? So there's the source. That's what they're sourcing it off of. Those are the employment statistics for SNAP beneficiaries among people who are not disabled.
You trust the government statistics over the guy who is afraid to show that he's bald?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Giving this away. Why do I work 16 hours a day and pay half my income in taxes so that people don't have to work? It makes no sense, and I'm not for it. Here's my pitch. When you receive that EBT card, you're required to show up at a certain location and do some work. You want money, you got to earn that money. That work can be trash cleanup. It can be at home data entry. And I'm not even saying 8 hours. There's got to be maybe 4 hours a day. You do.
Interesting. Okay, so first of all, what you're saying is you want government jobs, which is kind of strange because you guys were such Elon dick suckers because he was getting rid of unnecessary government jobs. So now you want to create government jobs so that you force people to do government jobs in order to get benefits. So is this motivated, to Chris Van Hollen's point, by anything other than just sadism? Because you guys were just saying, I mean, this was less than a year ago, just a few months ago. You guys were gloating about how Elon was slashing all these wasteful government jobs. And now you're saying, well, in order for people to qualify for food stamps, the government has to create jobs for them. Okay, so is this really about efficiency? Or is this just about sadism? Is it just about shaming people and humiliating people who get food stamps? That's clearly what it's about. Because you guys clearly, out of one side of your mouth, want all these government jobs cut. In fact, you were upset that more government jobs didn't get cut. Aside from that, let's take a look at this. There already are work requirements for food stamps among the able-bodied. Able-bodied adults without dependents are subject to SNAP work requirements and a 3-month time limit in a 36-month period unless they meet certain criteria. To meet the work requirement, individuals must work or participate in a qualifying work program for at least 80 hours per month, which is what? About 4 hours a day, which is what Tim Pool said he wanted. To be exempt from the time limit, you must meet certain conditions, such as being medically unfit for employment or caring for a dependent child under 14. recent changes have expanded the age range and eliminated some previous exemptions. You're talking about the big, beautiful bill. But is this a new thing? Is this a new thing? No. In other words, did Daddy Trump clean up the waste and get all the freeloaders back to work so that they're not abusing the food stamp program? No. This whole able-bodied, what do they call the fucking thing? I forget. Able-bodied adults without dependence provision was enacted by Bill Clinton in 1996.
The end of welfare as we know it.
The end of welfare as we know it. Exactly. So there's been long-standing work. So exactly what Tim Pool is saying there should be, there has been for 30 years. So this is what, so guys like Tim Pool will come on and shoot their mouth off knowing not the first thing what they are talking about. I put this segment together this morning. Took me about an hour. This guy has 100 times the audience we have and feels no responsibility whatsoever to do the most cursory amount of research to make sure he's telling people the truth, because he's not interested in telling people the truth. He's interested in ginning up hatred against poor people, because that's what his incel loser audience wants to feel in order to validate their own miserable existence.
4 hours of work, and the other 4 hours go look for a job. And then I would say after a month, if you want to keep receiving these benefits, then you have to have some kind of job. And here's what I'll stress this.
This already exists. What are you going to stress?
Getting a job and losing the benefits is an incentive for people to not get a job. That's the problem. The way it should.
It's not the problem. They have to have a job to keep the benefits. That's not the. And again, you're just making this up. You're just pulling this out of your ass.
Well,
none of what you're saying is true at all. Not in the least. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, this is, I mean, the freeze frame here is perfect. This is exactly what we've been saying, at least since the douchebag dialogues. These guys are just a tech broadcast paint job over just Reaganism. Just Reaganism. This is just welfare queen shit. This is just classic right-wing argument against social protections and social safety nets. It disincentivizes work. You put on a beanie, you project all of this, skater boy testosterone bullshit, and it puts this new veneer over what's just old, very basic William F. Buckley politics.
Yep, 100%. He goes on.
Work is you get a job, and there's a percentage you still receive. You see what I mean? Because I've met these people. There are people who really need it, and they're getting, a couple $100 a month, and they're like, but if I get a job, I'm going to have less money for food.
It's not true.
Because they're going to take all the benefits away. So it should be a tapering down. To be honest, I would actually be totally okay if they just let it expire, didn't fund it, and said, you're on your own. Because after seeing the reaction to all of these individuals on food stamps, it's not literally every single person. I'm just like, we got to shut it down. Shut it down and start over.
That's your source, the Daily Wire. He pulls up a Daily Wire headline, which is an opinion headline. That's what he uses as his source. Wow. That is pretty incredible stuff. So, again, everything he says there is absolute bullshit about how people are disincentivized to work when they're given food stamps. No, it's actually the opposite. There have been long-standing work requirements. The reason so many people are on food stamps is because they're not being paid enough by their bosses to afford to live without extra help from the government, which means that the actual people scamming the system are people who run corporations like this. Walmart and McDonald's are among top employers of Medicaid and food stamp beneficiaries. So you understand, it's the executives at large corporations who pay shit wages who are the ones actually scamming the system and being subsidized by the SNAP program, because they are not paying workers enough to live without added help from the government. So those are the people scamming the system, not the food stamp recipients, because the food stamp recipients are either children, old people, disabled people, or workers. This whole this horde of lazy people who are sitting on their ass getting food stamps does not exist. It does not exist. That is a lie, an absolute lie. So speaking of overfed morons, the quartering here Jeremy, tub of shit at the quartering, says the SNAP program should not be allowed to restart until all recipients reapply and are approved under far stricter standards. I refuse to believe there are 43 million Americans in need of me to pay for their Mountain Dew. Legit recipients should welcome this audit. Rather than refusing...
I mean, I just got to say, man, when you're modeling a Louis Anderson physique, you're really going to be taking shots at people about Mountain Dew.
About Mountain Dew, yeah.
Really?
Exactly.
A little self-awareness there.
Yeah. Yeah, a little self-awareness there is right. Notice none of these people actually cite any information. It's all, well, I refuse to believe there are 43 million Americans in need of me to pay for the Mountain Dew. Rather than refusing to believe something, why not look into it? Why not look into it if you have the kind of reach that you have to make sure you're not just going on a hunch, right? He's not the only one. Gunther Riegelman says, I'd bet at least 90% of those on SNAP are able-bodied people who can work. Oh, you'd bet that. You don't know that. You have not provided any evidence of that whatsoever. You say, I'd bet that. Well,
he felt very strongly about that. He did more than 5 words.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you would bet wrong because as I mentioned earlier, here is, and you can find this within 30 seconds of a Google search. This is not difficult to find. There is the distribution. Children younger than 5, children ages 5 to 17, they combine to make up just about 40%, 39.8, whatever it is. Another 19.5 are adults age 60 or over. And then 41%, those are the adults ages 18 to 59. Now, some of those are disabled. Most of those are not disabled. And most of the ones who are not disabled work. They have to. That's been a requirement for 30 years. Eric Matheny says every SNAP recipient should come up for review every 90 days. What measures have they taken to improve their situation? How many job interviews have they attended? Have they made any non-essential purchases? Safety nets must come with safeguards. Again, based on nothing. And look at the view counts on these tweets. 775,000. Ever since Elon rigged the algorithm to all the crazy Zionists that you don't follow, but you see their stuff anyway, it almost felt like last night somebody flipped a switch. Okay, elevate the most ignorant, hateful, just punching down at poor people posts you could find. Because this was everywhere last night. And these are all based on nothing. Nothing. There is no actual information to back up anything any of these people are saying. And notice, nobody cites anything. No, none of these people cite anything because once again, these are the people who are benefiting off of the SNAP program. These are the people who are scamming you, not the people receiving the food stamps. Ian Yeager, 40% of SNAP participants are obese, according to a recent study. Junk food should not be covered by SNAP benefits. Well, 40% SNAP participants, I think about 40% of Americans are obese. I'm pretty sure that tracks with the standard obesity rate. But to the extent it may be a little higher, I'm not sure. Guess what? Junk food is cheaper than healthy food. So if you're upset about them being fat off of your tax dollars, if you were to impose the kind of restrictions on what people were allowed to buy with food stamps, you'd have to increase the food stamps because good food is much more expensive than shit food.
Look at Whole Foods.
Is it? Which is it? Yeah. Do you resent them for being fat or do you resent them for taking your money? Because if you don't want them to be fat, you're going to have to give them more of your money because healthy food costs a lot more money than junk food. But here's Mr. Leadslinger. When I go to the store and see them advertising big tubs of chocolate chip cookies as EBT eligible, it makes me not care about it getting shut down. Steve Ferguson says, this is why SNAP must be abolished. Go back to handing out government commodities like rice, beans, and cheese to the most needy. The others can work or starve. Talk about doing to Gaza what they want to do to you here. Yeah, give them a bag of rice. Give them a bag of flour, right?
Yeah. They want to put the GHF in Chicago.
Yeah, exactly. So there were some people with some sense on X last night that, reaffirm your faith in humanity a little bit. Roll Tide Danny says, dudes will get on here and be like, poor kids don't deserve to have a cookie and think they're the good guys. Yes, exactly. But you saw so much of this shit, and this is as unhinged as it gets. Here's a woman saying people who get welfare shouldn't be allowed to vote. And this is not particularly uncommon. I mean, a lot of people feel this way. This went far and wide last night as well.
Funny. Workers who don't work, students who don't study, educators who don't educate, and politicians who cannot lead, so they buy votes instead. But somehow they figured it out. They create dependence and call it compassion. They create victims and call it justice. Create laziness and call it equality. And a bunch of dumb people fall for that. Yesterday I made a video about how crazy it is that more than 40 million people here in America are relying on food stamps to get their basic groceries. And then as I did more research, I found out that in Brazil, my home country, we have more than 94 million people receiving some sort of benefit from the government. That's almost half of the country. And this scares me really, because I know how things work in Brazil, and I know votes are completely bought. These people are going to vote for the ones who keep their checks coming in. And I feel like the same thing is happening now here in America. And now I'm going to say something that is controversial, but shouldn't be. I don't think these people should vote. Honestly, how can you vote freely when you're being bought? Welfare was supposed to be temporary help, but it's become a lifestyle. Worse than that, it's become a political strategy. And that is not compassion. That's control disguised as kindness.
Okay, well, then maybe the executives at Walmart and McDonald's should not be allowed to vote because they are clearly being bought off by the government since they pay workers so little to keep their margins so high that the SNAP program ends up costing a lot more than it should. On top of that, Walmart sells groceries to people on SNAP, so they're getting even more money on the other end.
They're getting it on both ends.
Right, so Walmart's getting it on both ends. So maybe Walmart executives should not be allowed to vote, if that's how you feel, because they are the ones scamming the system. But Modern Roman Freefall says it very well. The United States is uniquely sociopathic in how many of its citizens have been propagandized into being outright resentful at the idea of poor people eating in an age of record income inequality. Absolutely. And this just happened to break last night, too, from More Perfect Union. Over the past 5 years, the wealth held by the top 0.1%, not 1%, the top 1/10 of 1% has nearly doubled from 12 trillion to over 23 trillion. And it's those 0.1 percenters who are the ones overseeing an economic system that leaves so many workers, not freeloaders, not workers dependent on the government for food stamps. And yet, if you scrolled X last night, we didn't even scratch the surface. The level of ignorance on display was just astounding. Astounding. It really was shameful. And there's, to me, a lot of this is psychology. A lot of why people are so easily propagandized into hating the poor is because there is a lot of comfort in the idea that your enemies are less powerful than you are. You want to feel like you have some power over your enemies. It is very scary to think that your enemies have more power than you do, because that gives your enemies power over you, which is a very helpless feeling to understand that your enemies are your superiors. They're your bosses who are not paying you. That's a very powerless place to be. It makes you feel more satisfied to think that, no, the people keeping you down are the people with less than you, with less power than you, because that gives you the ability to punish them and inflict pain upon them for putting you in your position, which you are dissatisfied with. Notice you will not increase your lot in life by doing that, but you will get an emotional satisfaction from punishing those who you can punish, who are less powerful than you, right? If you are able to punish them, that makes you feel less desperate in your current situation. And that is what leaves people so vulnerable to this propaganda. And then you have grifting, lying scumbags like Tim Pool and Gunther Riegelman and the rest of these who are just very, very happy to exploit your powerlessness and exploit the resentment that comes with your powerlessness to enrich themselves even further, and then bitch about how they're getting taxed so that lazy people can eat. When we've proven it to you here multiple times throughout this segment, food stamps benefit workers and people who cannot work. They do not go to able-bodied adults who choose not to work. That is not how it works. They are lying.
Yeah, they took away your jobs and they gave you podcasts. They took away your community and they gave you X. This is all aimed at the same thing the corporate media has been aimed at. What did you think? They're not going to notice that people aren't watching corporate media anymore, that they're getting their opinions from social media, and they weren't going to buy out social media and artificially inflate the followings of people who are going to chirp out what they once said? That's why you got so many people who are not particularly smart or interesting, like Tim Pool, having millions of views. You think they're not rigging the algorithm to promote Tim Pool? You think he naturally would attract that kind of a following? No. We're going to get into that in a piece later. Like, a lot of these people, they're not even the people that they claim that they are. Like, a lot of the people who don't have shows like this, they actually are a front for a group of people who are all tweeting on the account. It's not even Gunther Riegelman, I don't know that for sure. I suspect it. But if you wonder, why are these people in every thread that you go to that's hot on social media? No one person can do that. It's a group of people who are pushing an agenda, and they're being paid for it. We know Tim Pool got busted meeting with Netanyahu. We've seen him trying to shut down conversation about the USS Liberty in the middle of his show in a way that made his own panel go, what the fuck's going on with this guy? These people, they do that about everything. They are offering a product that serves oligarchs. Richard Wolff recently tweeted out, the thing that oligarchs have to fear in democracy is that the workers, who will always outnumber them, may vote against their interests. In order to avoid that, they buy up all of the media, all of the propaganda outlets, and they push their agenda. People like Rogan, people like Tim Pool, people like Benny in the Closet, that's just 2.0. They are paid. They are compromised. They are bought when they're sitting there parroting exactly the line that Peter Thiel wants parroted, that Elon wants parroted. These are not organic opinions. Now, in some cases, this aligns with who they are already, and that's how they wound up making a living that way. But past a certain point, it just becomes a business. Like, they have no interest in saying, but you know what? Walmart should also pay more. Yeah, I mean, a guy like Benny in the Closet, sure, he might believe that, yeah, people should be working and all that shit. But does he not believe that Walmart should not be benefiting from that system? Like, in the end, that follows, right? And you will here and there see guys like Thomas Massey, who are morally consistent and not in it to make a buck, will make points like that. You'll never hear that from Benny in the Closet, because he's making his living not interrogating those interests. Those interests and people aligned with those interests, that's who pays these people. They are spokesmodels, just like corporate media. Just like they bought out corporate media, they bought out most of this space. A lot of this engagement is artificial. A lot of it is just bots, and a lot of it is juicing the algorithm to push these people to the top of it. This is why whenever you see opinion polls, most people don't think like this. Even with all of the effort they put into this propaganda, most people don't believe that. So if most people don't believe that, how do these people get that kind of a following? Because it's all rigged.
Well, yeah, of course. And the other side of this also is that, corporations like Amazon and Walmart, they're all switching to AI. We did a segment on the patron side. We'll be dropping the clip on the public channel probably tonight or tomorrow. They just cut tens of thousands of blue-collar jobs in an AI push. So they don't want you to work. These people who are shaming you for not working don't want you to have a job. They don't want you working. That's the other thing that Tim Pool will never reckon with, or Benny Johnson. None of these people, Gunther Riegelman, they'll work. You better work. What work? Work where? Work where? The people who are telling you to work are the same people filleting the corporations who are cutting jobs for AI. They admit it openly. Yeah. So it is just sadism. That's all it is.
that moron Marty Dolan, who's running against Jumaane Williams, that I interviewed the other day. I didn't get into this because I already gave him more time than he deserved. But he was basically pitching the meritocratic thing. Well, we need education so that then we have more people who are optometrists. And that's how you fix the economy. Yo, man, AI is coming for those jobs. They laid off at Amazon because you don't need, nimble little monkey fingers to be in the executive suite. They're starting with them. They're working towards getting rid of the warehouse workers, but they don't have the robotics technology quite there yet. But they do have, at least they feel they have some of the AI already. That's who they're firing first. So what are you talking about education? Education for what job?
Right. Exactly. All right, we'll take some Rumble rants over here. We got 119 strong in the YouTube chat. Big crowd in here for a Thursday. Candace Owens ain't playing, not even with a French woman's penis. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Appreciate that. Nocturnal Human says, I requested Jesse play the wheels on the bus yesterday. I don't think you saw it. Aspen's GoFundMe is 8% closer to the goal. Excellent. Thanks to everybody who tuned in last night for sure. Abiding says, this Friday, Norman Finkelstein gets a 2-hour special on the biggest podcast while Alan Dershowitz can't order pierogies on his little island. The proverbial arc is bending towards justice. What show is Norm on?
Rogan?
That would be great if he were on Rogan.
That would be great. I'd be fucking surprised if Rogan brought him on.
That would be surprising. But yeah, I wonder what he's going on. Israel assassinated Charlie Kirk and tried to frame the left, says Eric Rousseau.
Oh, maybe Candace. Maybe he's going on.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Oh, I mean, she would.
Oh, I think he's been on. And funny, no, it's funny. I think he's been on Candace Owens before.
Yeah,
Went back when she was on the Daily Wire.
That's all. Yeah.
Yeah, that was, I think, part of the rift there. I thought you guys were Sex in the City. Ha ha, good one, Eric Rousseau. All right, let's see here. Virtuoso says, Keaton, are you supposed to be Barry Weiss? That's right. The intro music was pretty sick, says Michael Castillo. Love the costumes. You guys kick ass. Free Palestine. Thank you. Don McCarthy says, are you the contestants for the Tyler Robinson dating game? That's good. Thank you, Don
I am
McCarthy.
very surprised and saddened to know how many people don't know Escape from New York.
I mean, it's a Gen X kind of thing, but we have a big Gen X audience,
Yeah.
Who is Tim Pool's audience? Well, we just described them for you there, my friend. Thank you. Meanwhile, Tim Pool's job, conspiring with a genocidal apartheid state to propagandize starving Americans. Yes, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly right. Yes. Good one. Appreciate that. All right, let's move right on along.
All right. Tucker doubled, tripled, and quadrupled down in a conversation with Nick Fuentes about his feelings towards and about Christian Zionism. Now, the interview on the whole is definitely worth watching with Fuentes and very instructive because Tucker gets into how he got to where he is. And you know what? Part of his origin story is that he got noticed pretty early on. They spotted his talent. He's an 18-year-old college kid. And the first people who tried to recruit him and bring him into the fold was the Daily Wire. Only one problem. He was asking too many questions about Israel that they did not want to answer. And as he continued to not let this go, according to his account, I have no reason to doubt it because it's consistent with what we know of Zionists, they wouldn't really give him a straight answer on why he said, I asked them, I wanted to know. I wasn't trying to confront them. I didn't really know about it. Why is it important that we have this relationship with Israel? And he kept pursuing it. And finally, they kicked him out. They cut him off. And he said, I considered these people my friends. And at that point, and that was it. The word went out that he was persona non grata. And you know what they created by doing that? Nick Fuentes and the Groypers. That's karma. That's karma. If you had not treated this guy like that, he probably would not be who he is or where he is today. This shit, it took a while, but we're definitely seeing their tactics backfiring against them. So here's Tucker talking to Fuentes.
Explain Mike Huckabee, Ted Cruz, and there are a lot like that. John Bolton. I mean, I've known them all. George W. Bush, like the Karl Rove. I mean, all people I know personally who I've seen like be seized by this brain virus, and they're not Jewish. Most of them are self-described Christians, and then the Christian Zionists who are, well, Christian Zionists. Like, what is that?
Right.
And I could just say for myself, I dislike them more than anybody. Because like what? Because it's Christian heresy, and I'm offended by that as a Christian. That's why. So I don't like. Why not? Like, I'm pissed at the neocons. Very pissed. I've said that a million times. I've been mad since December of 2003 when I went to Iraq. And so like I went and asked straightforward questions to Ted Cruz, because that seemed like there's a sitting senator who's like serving for Israel by his own description. He seemed like a worthy target. I'm not going after MTG, who's like the most sincere like, why not go after Ted Cruz? I don't understand.
Okay, well, they did not like the sound of that, and I will point out, Christian Zionism predates Zionism as we know it. It predates the Zionist movement of the late 19th century that led into the founding of the modern state of Israel. Lord Palmerston in England was the first person to propose in a very anti-Semitic spirit. It was never in a spirit of, oh, we love Jews, we want them returned to their homeland. It was in a spirit of, hey, that's a win-win. We can get the Jews out of England, and they can act as our agents in the Middle East, which is pretty much what they are for us now, and also to some extent for England. So cue meltdown and denial. Shadi Kaloui. I am an indigenous Christian living in Israel. You know what that probably makes you? A Hebrew, a biblical Hebrew who converted.
Right.
And yes, I am a Zionist under the Israeli government. I have equal rights and a good life. Well, he must have a good raincoat, as we will see. Tucker Carlson, do you prefer people like me to be erased from my homeland like my Christian brothers in Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon? You notice how they never mention, I've noticed this, they never mention Iran when they talk about this, because Iran actually has the largest population of Jews outside of Israel in the Middle East. They actually have a Jewish member of the Iranian parliament, so they don't want to open that up. They always avoid that topic. They always avoid the fact that there was no problem. Nobody really had a problem with Jews in that region until the Zionists came in and started murdering the Palestinians and taking their land. Yeah, funny how that works. But yeah, this guy would have you believe that there's no problem with being a Christian in Israel, but he must go out wearing his rubbers and some plastic sheeting to avoid the cascades of spit coming his way, or maybe he goes undercover with a kippah. Here's how Christians are actually treated in Israel.
Little community here. We get spit on every day. Wearing a cross, you will get spit on in this neighborhood. You will get into fist fights. And
who's spitting on you?
The Jews, of course, the Orthodox Jews. They are raised in their schools how to hate the Christians.
Und damit verabschieden wir uns aus Jerusalem.
Oh yeah, it's great being a Christian over there.
But you cannot.
Awesome.
Don't take a picture.
Awesome.
Take it down.
You know, come
take
on,
it down.
This is not, you are touching me, you have no right to touch me, you have no right to spit on me. Hey, come on. Oh no, he spit on me, you know, he spit on me and he touched me. You know, because, you know, the police is always asking, then, you know, I need a picture of his face.
I knew we should have gone to Paris.
So I think the Christian who put up that post, I hope he got his $7,000 wired to him.
Yeah.
Fucking Yesu.
It's like Nazis, man.
It's nice. No, that is a great place to go visit.
Oh yeah. No, it's awesome for Christians. Look,
It's
here you go.
great.
Oh, look at that.
It's love.
It's a wonderful place for Christians.
Look.
They treat them so well there. Yeah. There you go. There you go. Great place for Christians. Now you want to say these are some bad apples? This man is in the government. This is Ben Gvir. He's the security minister for Israel, arguing that spitting on Christians should not be a crime because it's a tradition.
ביטחון לאומי, איתמר בן גביר, עוד לא הגיב על האירוע הזה. התבטאות שלו כאן ברשת ב' אם אולי עוזרת להבין למה.
Gabi, first, there is an ancient Jewish custom. When we, the Jews, pass by a monastery or a priest, we spit. Now, once again, I grew up in a Catholic neighborhood, and if you had done that, you probably would have gotten a busted jaw pretty quick. I never heard of this tradition. We can agree or disagree, but when we spit on the priest or the church, I do not think this expresses any violation. Must we practice every ancient Jewish tradition, you tell me? No, this is not the topic. The issue is, why do we turn this into a criminal matter? Okay, that's the minister of security saying it should not be against the law to spit on Christians. So whatever this guy got to sell out Christians, I hope it was a lot. I hope he got his proverbial 30 shekels of silver.
Yeah. They got to work on the messaging around that. That's bad PR. They need to get Destiny over there. Stop fucking spitting on people. You can't stop spitting on people. Jesus Christ.
Everyone's got a camera in their phone now.
Got a camera on their phone. What are you fucking spitting on people for? What are you, crazy?
Stop spitting on people. If you do it, at least do it inside a house where you know they're not filming.
Spit on them from behind so you know they're not filming you. Spit on the back of their head. Jesus Christ.
Spit on the back of their neck. They won't even know it's you. How are the churches doing over there? Fact, Israel bombed every church in Gaza, including one that is over 1,000 years old. Yes, they bombed a church that is the third oldest in the world that goes back to 425 AD. Fact, Semite Christians of the Holy Land identify as Arab Palestinians. You know, it's funny, man. If you look at the writings of the early Zionists, they acknowledged that these Arab Christians and Muslims were probably the ancient Hebrews before it became a political problem for them. They acknowledged that because they're in the Palestinian dialect, there are Hebrew words. So they said, well, open up the Hebrew schools to them. And, they thought they'd convert them back. And then when they were not happy about the idea of being displaced from their land and letting the Zionists take over, then all of a sudden they changed the story to they are the Jews and these people are not indigenous to this land. They were shipped in from other places. But originally that was not their story. Originally they acknowledged these people are probably descended from the original Hebrews, which to a large extent they are. So, yeah, complete meltdown from the Christian Zionists. Stella Escobedo, Tucker's lecturing on Christian Zionism and heresy as if it isn't rooted in biblical faith. Jesus was a Jew. Well, he was also kind of the first convert, wasn't he? By definition. Like, yes, he was a Jew, but he kind of started his own franchise. No? Like, by definition, wasn't Jesus a Christian? Like, I mean, that's kind of
the whole thing.
Christian. That's kind of the whole point of the whole thing. That's
kind of the whole point of the story. That's like saying, well, did you know Darth Vader is Luke's father? Yeah, we do. Yes. Yeah, that's kind of that's foundational to the story. Yes.
Yes. It's kind of central. Ted Cruz. It's remarkable and sad watching Tucker turn into Nick Fuentes. Yes. Ambassador Mike Huckabee. Wasn't aware that Tucker despises me. I do get that a lot from people not familiar with the Bible or history. Somehow I will survive the animosity. Now, somebody responded, Idomeneus, Tucker's view is the one that prevailed without challenge in Christianity since its inception. In contrast, your view dates to the Schofield Reference Bible reinterpretation 1909 and is an aberration only found in America. It makes no sense to call on Christians to serve and elevate those who reject Christ. If you believe Jews are the chosen people and not Christians, you should convert to Judaism. Yes, and if you take a look at the Bible, the Old Testament says, and I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee, and in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed, meaning the Hebrews. But then in the New Testament, there is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither bond nor free. There is neither male nor female. See, they were trans. For ye, see, they say the gender ideology is a modern thing. They were ahead of their time there. For ye are all one in Christ Jesus. See, they didn't believe in gender.
Ye who finish 5th place behind 4 women shall not shall not
bitch it.
shall not bitch it. Yes.
And if ye be Christ's, then are ye Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. Now, this is from talking to Christians, from studying Christianity and interpretation. This is the general interpretation that the Old Testament is the prequel, right? And Jesus is the fulfillment of everything that the Old Testament is leading up to. So that once Jesus comes and cleanses sin with his blood, well, then everybody now is of God, right? Now it's not confined to the Jews anymore. That was the whole point. That's certainly Paul's interpretation of what Jesus represents, opening it up to the Gentile, to everyone. There's no more Gentile and Jew. It says it right there. But it gets better than that. And some of you are probably already know about this. So the Schofield Bible was basically written by a fraudster and a crackpot who was probably supported by Zionist money. There is pretty good evidence that he was, because his career makes no sense. This is a guy who had been driven out of office of district attorney in Kansas for corruption, went on to be arrested for forging his sister's. She was married to a prominent French Catholic family, married into it, was busted forging his sister's signature on checks. All of a sudden gets elevated as part of the entourage of Moody, who was kind of the Billy Graham of the mid-19th century. Lies about having a doctor of divinity. He did not. He had no actual theological training. So this is an interesting video. This guy, he doesn't really have a big following. So give him a follow if you can. Josh Mumbai. He went to Bible college, so he knows of what he speaks here. And this video is very informative without being, some of these are get out ahead of the facts in their conspiratorial analysis of this. That's why I liked this video, because he demonstrates the conspiracists are pretty much right. They're just making claims they can't prove. But it's kind of like he keeps making the comparison to the JFK assassination. Yeah, like you can't prove certain things, but if you look at the fact pattern, it's obvious that there's a general sense that what they told you is not what actually happened there. So here's a little bit of this. So he explains, here's a direct connection to a Zionist. He applied to join this very expensive upper class men's club that it doesn't even make any sense. They would have some half-bright country preacher invited into this club to begin with, except that he gets sponsored by a Zionist.
Little community.
Whoop. Wrong one. Sorry about that.
Here's the kicker, though. One of the members of the literary committee that had to approve his admission was a man named Samuel Untermeyer. Untermeyer was a powerful New York attorney and political figure and committed Zionist. So this is where the source of the theories typically come from. But they're pretty blatant, honestly. Untermyer was so powerful that he allegedly, but he did, blackmailed President Woodrow Wilson into putting Brandeis on the Supreme Court. So let's think about this for a second. A man like that was in charge of allowing Schofield into this elite club where he gets to rub elbows with all these powerful men. And up until this point, Schofield's literary output consisted of what? Like tracts and pamphlets. He wrote Rightly Dividing the Word of Truth, but that's it. There's no logical reason why these elite figures would find Schofield to be a acceptable fit for their exclusive club. Unless, of course, his theological work was seen as being able to serve some other purpose. And the fact that Untermyer accepted Schofield in this group kind of indicates why, right? This was a man whose life was completely removed from the circle Schofield normally ran in. Yet somehow, Untermyer accepted Schofield into the group, right? So why would a committed Zionist support the membership of a hick Bible teacher? Well, it's obvious because the theology, with its emphasis on a future restoration of Israel, was extremely helpful in getting fundamentalist Christians to back Zionist interests. His theology provided the religious justification for supporting the establishment of a Jewish state in Palestine. Now, this isn't just to pin all of this on one man. That's dumb, right? The theology was such that all it took was a little push in America for it to spread like wildfire. There wasn't this massive overarching thing, but nevertheless, there was a little bit of manipulation in it. Which brings us to the actual Scofield Reference Bible. Now, the development of the Scofield Reference Bible was financed by a small group of wealthy men. I don't know if they were Zionists or not. Honestly, it's a little ambiguous. And everything about it, it's kind of mundane, the parts of him creating it. There's some stuff, but it's not as interesting. But what's more remarkable is the fact that the Bible was published by Oxford University Press. This is probably next to the Lotus Club. This is one of the more absurd parts of the Scofield Reference Bible. Oxford Press. It's one of the world's most prestigious academic publishers, right? They didn't publish study Bibles, especially ones with such a specific theological agenda behind it, and especially one where the theology was closer to that of a cult rather than that of being mainline Protestant. This was a massive, credible, respected institution that published this book. They didn't publish stuff like this, right? There's no way they didn't do it without some strings being pulled or without some ulterior motive.
Which is why it's important to note the way that Oxford University worked. Prior to the 1950s in England, there were only two main universities, Oxford and Cambridge, with Oxford being the preferred university for aspiring politicians. Which is why it's not a leap to assume that Oxford University Press would function as the sort of propaganda arm of the British Empire in order to present people in politics with the sort of range of opinions that are within the British imperialist orthodoxy. This is why it's also important to note that the second edition of the Scofield Reference Bible came out in 1917, the same year as the Balfour Declaration.
Okay. So this is where this shit comes from, and that's why I mentioned Lord Palmerston. Christian Zionism was born in England, and he very well, and many other people have made this argument. The idea that Oxford University Press published this kind of cultish, crackpot Zionist interpretation of the Bible, why? Like, why would a reputable academic institution publish that if not as in service to the agenda of the empire at that time, which very formally, starting in 1917 and informally before that, involved establishing a Jewish state in that region that would act as a vassal state for the British Empire in the way that it ended up when the torch got passed, functioning as a vassal state for the United States that succeeded it. Do you want to say anything before I go on?
No, I mean, except that, when Tucker says this offends him as a Christian, I mean, this is, I suppose, why. I mean, this is one area. I mean, I'm proud to say that, this is out of my wheelhouse. So I don't really know shit about fuck when it comes to any of that by choice. But it makes sense that it would, because it's obviously just a cabal of people with earthly ambitions. It clearly has nothing to do with the actual underlying philosophy or spirituality of the religion itself. So it makes sense. It would offend him if he's a serious Christian.
Right. But then you do have a lot of people who see themselves that way, who've been brainwashed by this very sketchy
of course,
interpretation of the New Testament that has very shadowy origins.
Well, a few generations in, that's what happens. That's why you have young people in Israel who are brainwashed into Zionism, because even though it's only 77 years old, that's enough time to be someone's grandkid. So you could do a lot of damage in a couple generations.
Right, and they're raised. The kind of education they get in Israel is a complete misrepresentation of the historical and archaeological record.
Yeah, you got little kids growing up in tents in the West Bank because their parents are, Jewish settlers. So of course they're going to grow up in that world.
All right, so here's a good example of the kind of just completely unscrupulous dirtbag that puts out these ideas or would attack Tucker Carlson for saying that. They're not even, in many cases, authentic. They're bought and paid for so-called influencers. Insurrection Barbie, it's a prime example. Christian Zionist here, and I'll gamble my eternal salvation. Sure you are, honey. Sure you are. On my theology over that of Tucker Carlson all day, every day. The most insidious thing he is doing is perverting scripture. Oh no, not the disgraced former DA with no theological background who wrote the crackpot interpretation of the New Testament that all this is based on. He wasn't the one who perverted scripture. Tucker Carlson is perverting it and corrupting the minds of young, impressionable Christians. Charlie Kirk, they all invoke Charlie Kirk as the arbiter, which is interesting given that in his final days he was worried about the Zionists killing him for turning against Israel.
Well, they're invoking him to shame Tucker and Tucker's ilk into shutting up. Right.
Oh yeah, of course. Charlie Kirk, but I mean, given what's been revealed, you might not want to bark up that tree. Charlie Kirk was the greatest disciple for Christ of our time. He brought people to the cross. This current brand of counterfeit Christianity only recruits for the devil. Okay, so I want you to look at, it's interesting that Schofield, it looks like, was basically a con man acting as a front for Zionists or for the British Empire or both. These people are always a front. These people are always the worst people on earth. Max Blumenthal. Insurrection Barbie appears to be Irina Pavchinskaya Sadano, a convicted felon guilty of fraud and theft. After he was captured by the Israel lobby, Elon turned this Hasbarist into a top influencer, gaming the algorithm in her favor and frequently engaging with her tweets. This is why you see these people all over X. Why would anybody read her stuff? There are 8 million accounts that tweet out bullshit like that. They pick a couple people to elevate to spread the message. So that's the real her. So, don't take that avatar too seriously. Surprisingly, she does not look quite like that avatar. But Gen X girl, if you want to look it up, she did a whole expose on her back in April. Who is Insurrection Barbie? 2017 pled guilty to felony theft, $2,000. It was from her employers. She was writing bad checks. 2017 disbarred. She had a law degree. She was disbarred for embezzlement. 2018 fraud and forgery charges. 2020 felony theft, $80,000. 2022 all of a sudden she reinvents herself. Insurrection Barbie on X. 2024 peddles Israel propaganda. 2025 1 million followers and reposted by Elon Musk. And she so effectively made her case that Insurrection Barbie actually responded somebody screenshotted it before she took it down. She took it down very quickly, but she responded, yes, you got me, baby doxer. That is totally 100 me. Everyone can now feel good knowing that and maybe stop the new attempted dox stuff every other week. Totally me. I will still be exposing the Muslim Brotherhood. I will still be exposing Indivisible. That's the grift, baby. That's the grift. Always be closing. Always be closing, even if they have pictures. And this is very interesting and very instructive if you want to understand how all this works. Again, Gen X girl. Even more interesting is the volume of posts, which average one post every 3 minutes since 8/18/2022. The no DMs note on her bio may just be because the account is operated by multiple people. It's impossible for one person to post every 3 minutes for 2.5 years. You would die without sleep. So these people are literally professional propagandists. So this is why you see people who are trying to extend their reach on these platforms and get picked up by the algorithm, and they see that the people with millions of followers are in every thread and in every conversation. So they drive themselves crazy trying to do that, but they can't, because if you're actually trying to get your voice out there because you have actual political principles, you're not going to do what these people do. They hire a fucking team. They hire a team. As soon as I read that, a lot of things fell into place for me. Like, because, yeah, I hate X. I think anyone with a soul probably does. And, you know, just thinking about, God, how are they in every conversation? How is Gunther Eagleman commenting on every fucking thing? That's why. That's why. Because Gunther Eagleman, it's not that the guy doesn't exist. There are pictures of him. He's a front for a team of propagandists. This is a business. And when you're selling Hasbara, they're getting paid, man. They're getting paid $7,000 a post, man. That's enough to hire 5 kids to work your account all day. I mean, this also explains, with Eagleman in particular, explains why most of his posts are 5 words. Right? I mean, just keep it on brand. You should be deported. You should be deported. Poor people need to work. Right? I mean, how hard is that? You could just get a bunch of college kids to work your account. So much of what you're seeing is it's artificial, paid for propaganda in a way that actually, in a lot of ways, is worse than the corporate media that this independent media was supposed to replace, because there is absolutely no accountability. Absolutely no standards and practice. Absolutely no ombudsman. Like, there's nobody to hold these people accountable for being essentially foreign agents. Like, yeah, there's FARA. Good luck getting this administration to impose it, or, to be fair, any administration to impose it when you're talking about Israel.
Yeah, well, there's no way to verify. I mean, that's the thing. There's not the assumption that information is actually vetted on X. That's why,
Right.
you know, last night, all of that stuff about the food stamps just went viral, post after post
Right.
after post,
Right.
based on absolutely nothing,
Right.
based on no information whatsoever. Just goes viral, and people just accept that as truth. And yeah, I mean, why couldn't you just farm that out? You know, just like, you know, when Jimmy can't do the show, he hires people to sit in. You know, they probably do the same thing. Hey, you know, I'm going to be on vacation next week. All right, you're going to rage bait about the illegal immigrants. You're going to
Yeah, but I think it's beyond that.
Take this. Yeah,
I think that's standard operating procedure. They don't occasionally do that. It's the only way they could post as much as they do.
Yeah, no, it could be just a standard thing. You could just have a rotating team under a banner, under a brand.
Right. Exactly.
That's why so many of these accounts have like these weird kind of handles, or they're not even presenting themselves as a person. Like, what is End Wokeness? Is End Wokeness one guy, or is End Wokeness, you know, a team?
Right. 10
people. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, and these are the kinds of people who, as soon as Tucker Carlson says something like that, you got the Hasbara machine. They have their agents online, and they put out the word, go after this, and synchronously. They all do. And this is also part of why, if you look at these people across different accounts, very often they'll have almost identical talking points, just like the corporate media. Just like the corporate media. The people who are actually running this shit, it's always a mistake to think your enemies are stupid. They're not stupid. They saw the center of gravity move here, and they bought everyone in this space. And frankly, I am sure Insurrection Barbie is a lot cheaper to buy than NBC.
Yes, much more so. All right, we'll move right on along. Why don't we do Ackman next, and then I'll do mine, because the wife is getting the baby out the door, so he's going to be a little loud for a few more minutes. So this way, I'll just mute up while you're doing the next segment, and then they'll be out. FYI, Rumble Chat is fucked. Sort of working on iOS app, but browser version is frozen. Oh yeah, there was a problem. I noticed that I couldn't even use Rumble. I was watching Jimmy's show last night, and when they did the Rumble switch, I couldn't even watch it because it wasn't even loading for me. So I know Rumble has been having some problems. Thank you for that. Abiding says Russell should do a tour every latte hotspot and velvet rope throne room of our Broadway princess Rachel Z, along with selfie stops and Queen Z t-shirts. Thanks for fighting. Appreciate that. Eric Rousseau says you look kind of like the Vanguard boys. Scary. Ha ha.
Yeah, just like them.
Just like them. Snake, I thought you were dead, says Vulture. There we go.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
Stoop Sign says Chad is working on Android app as well. Okay, thank you, Bonzo Beans. Appreciate that. Yeah, Tim, go get an actual job, douchebag, says Nina Can. Absolutely. And EO Shush, yeah, again, this is another point. Yes, good point. These grifters were silent on the $65 billion to Argentina and Israel that would cover SNAP benefits over half of a year or 3 years of healthcare subsidies. Yeah, exactly. Good call. Well, this is what I mean, that's what Van Hollen was talking about. It really is sadism. It's like they want people to hate poor people. The more you hate poor people, the less you blame rich people. It's that simple. Why don't these 42 million tricky Ivans get a Russian oligarch to funnel them millions to spread propaganda instead of living off the government? Exactly. Let's see here. What do we got? First Cost Homes. Stack a chart of corporate tax rate, corporate profits, middle class pay, and welfare for 40 years. Hell, toss in the national debt for good measure. This is a policy choice we have allowed. Exactly. Thank you. Where Many says, what will Tim Pool says when AI takes away jobs? Should that system exist? Should people be allowed to eat then? Keep up the good work, guys. Exactly.
Tim Pool's going to be saying what he's saying now, whatever they pay him to say.
Right. Whatever they tell him to say is what he'll say. Exactly. Even if Bibi wanted to stop the genocide, the Western Zionists wouldn't allow him. This isn't about land or religion. It's just a power flex to show tough Jews have arrived and can do what they want. Well, I think it's about land. I do. I mean, yes, I think it's about what you say. And I think that's a lot of how they build support for themselves. But I do think they are in it for the land. Brant Lebowski also says, Bill Burr was quiet during the genocide, and now he's defending his censored comedy shtick in Saudi Arabia. Guess he and other comedians are not as bold and daring as they make themselves out to be. Thank you for that. Mark Pugliese, Russ, the hair throws it off. Too much of it. I think the hair is good. Did you give yourself a 5 o'clock shadow using makeup, or did you just not shave yesterday?
Makeup.
Oh, see, that's good. It looks natural. It looks like you actually have real 5 o'clock shadow.
I do have that theater training.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's good. Can AOC get her presidential or Senate campaign over with already? I'm tired of seeing her over the top virtue signaling shtick. Red Dog says, what will happen when Fuentes is the moderate viewpoint? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I didn't watch that whole interview. I watched a little. You watched the whole thing?
I'm halfway through it.
Okay. EO Shush says, just like the healthcare subsidies creating a death spiral, increasing everybody's premiums, grocery stores are going to raise prices when they lose their $8 billion in subsidies this month. Of course. And look, best case scenario, let's just say there was minimal disturbance to the actual healthcare market, which of course is not true, but let's just take that fantasy pill and swallow it. At the very least, it means much less consumer spending. Right? Because even if people are able to swing the healthcare, that's less money they have left over to spend everywhere else. So it's going to affect more than just healthcare. It's going to affect everything. Now, the Democrats, unlike in 2021, where the progressives made that fake show of force, that they were going to hold out for the good infrastructure bill, the Democrats at the end of the day here are limited in their leverage because they're the minority party. So they very well might have to cave in the end if the Republicans will simply just allow everyone to die, which, spoiler alert, they will before they give up on this agenda. The Democrats might have to blink first, but I think what their theory is like, look, we have to be able to tell people at this time next year we did everything we could to stop this from happening, but we didn't have enough votes. And so if you want us to stop this, you have to give us more votes. Like, that's the only thing they can do.
You have
like,
to get these guys out of office. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, they might have to cave on this eventually. I think they probably will. So it's not like an easy thing, but it's the only thing. Like, it's the only thing they can do, really. They can't do anything else. Sorry, got that one. Noah Goop says, did you see Trump's going to start nuclear testing again? Tweeted it out a few hours ago.
That.
Yeah, I saw that. No, it's a very peace president. That's good. No, I feel great about that.
Peace president.
He's the peace president. Yeah, we're going to start testing nuclear bombs. Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. All right. Let's move right on along. All right. So you'll do this one and then I'll take 3 in a row.
All right. So you might remember a few months ago, this is back in July, Ackman bought his way into playing on a tennis pro tournament. This is from Jonathan Doe's. I guess when you're worth $9.5 billion, tour players will treat you like a Make-A-Wish child in your ATP Challenger match. Bill Ackman is an absolute joke. Shame on the Tennis Hall of Fame. Shame on the ATP Tour for allowing this man to buy a wild card. Where are we? Saudi Arabia? Well, funny you should ask. Because Bill Ackman just turned up in the kingdom. There's a big financial conference going on. And even in the kingdom, man, Zoran is living in this guy's head rent-free. All he could talk about, Zoran, man. How obsessed do you have to be with your aristocratic privilege and control to be this obsessed when you have that kind of money with a local mayor's race? What difference does it make for you? What real difference does it make for you? For these people, it is all about power and control. They cannot tolerate any defiance of their will. They are so used to everything going exactly according to their plans. So here he is talking about Zoran in Saudi Arabia.
Been very good to me and my family. Been a New York City residents for over 100 years. And it's the most important financial capital in the world. And I think there are having a socialist mayor, I think, would be catastrophic for New York. While he's correct, as we saw from the survey, affordability is the #1 issue, actually, for many people in New York City. He's correct on the issue, but he's incorrect on the solution.
All right, so who's going to win the mayor election?
I actually think we have a shot of Cuomo winning the election, but we have to have everyone on this panel tell everyone who works for them to show up on election day or before. It's a critically important election for New York.
Okay, so scare your employees, threaten their job, keep it vague so you don't get sued, but make everyone who works for you go vote for the granny-killing molester who we in my class have all decided to line up behind. So here's David Sirota. A group of literal oligarchs bewailing socialism at a gathering inside a kingdom ruled by an actual monarch is a bit too on the nose. Yeah, you think? Mel, Saudi Arabia has universal health care, free higher education, free universal child care, and interest-free mortgages. Does Bill even know where the hell he's at? Well, this is what happens when nobody questions you to your face. You just talk shit without fear of rebuke. So this is Grok. Saudi citizens receive free public health care and education, K through 12 and university, heavily subsidized utilities, fuel, and housing via interest-free loans or grants through programs like the housing program. They also benefit from no personal income tax, pensions, and cash assistance via the Citizen Account Program to offset economic reforms. Saudization mandates private sector firms hire quotas of Saudis, varying by industry and size, to prioritize local employment, reduce expat reliance, and lower youth unemployment. You know what that sounds like? That sounds like fucking socialism. That sounds like socialism. Those lazy Saudis getting all those government benefits. That's crazy. Now, this is another funny thing about them welcoming Bill Ackman with open arms, because like all of the other billionaires losing their shit about Zohran Mamdani, he certainly has not been afraid to gin up Islamophobia. If New Yorkers want New York City to become like Manchester, then vote for Zohran Mamdani. So what is he referencing? Of course, very recently he had a tragic attack on a synagogue in Manchester. So he's telling you, essentially, you elect this Muslim and you're going to get Muslim terrorism. So why do the Saudis welcome somebody who's trafficking in that in order to disqualify a Muslim candidate? Again, we've done a lot of segments about this. This guy has very far extreme positions on LGBTQ issues, such as transporting trans people to New York to pay for their transgender surgeries on his website. Like, how much more secular could you be? If this is not secular enough for you, then you feel Muslims are disqualified. You feel that no Muslim should hold office. If that is what a jihadi looks like to you, then with his smoking wife with the knee-high boots at the wedding, if that's what a jihadist looks like to you, then Muslims look like jihadists to you by definition. And these are the same people. This happened when I was at the event the other day. Is it okay to criticize Israel? Yes, but once you start to, it's anti-Semitic. Like they realize how indefensible it is to say, no, you can't criticize Israel without being anti-Semitic. So they'll concede that on principle, but not in fact. Because once you start to raise criticisms, all those criticisms are anti-Semitic. So he is a jihadist by definition for criticizing Israel in what I think most of us would agree are about the mildest terms you could criticize it in. He's not even really going hard at Israel, certainly not as hard as it deserves. He hasn't used the G word. He hasn't talked about genocide, nothing like that. Simply criticizing Israel. It's too much.
Well, I'm pretty sure Mamdani has called it a
has
genocide.
He called it a genocide? I could be wrong about that.
Yes, yeah.
All right, so Max Blumenthal here. Few scenes could capture the delusional mind state of the predatory U.S. financial elite better than anti-Muslim fanatic Bill Ackman railing against a social democrat NYC mayoral candidate from within the kingdom that nurtured 15 of the 19 9/11 hijackers. Oh, there's that too. I mean, there's part of the irony. He's going to Saudi Arabia to make these really Islamophobic arguments against Mamdani inherently. Now, he's smart. Generally, he'll code it the way he did in that tweet. Mostly, he sticks on the socialism thing. But I'm sure there are no politically aware people in Saudi Arabia who don't know what he traffics in. Muslim Matters points this out. For a Zionist anti-Muslim bigot, Bill Ackman, to be sitting in Saudi Arabia and discussing his ongoing Islamophobia operation against Mamdani on behalf of Israel shows how hypocritical Ackman is and how pathetic the Muslim Ummah is. That Saudi is gathering Muslim haters and giving them more money to continue their hate campaign. Yes, I was a little surprised, not too surprised, when we did our thing about the comedians going over to do the comedy show in Saudi Arabia. We got a little pushback from some people who are very much, I talk about this on my tour. One of the problems with the 60s counterculture was it was so made up of naive suburban white kids who thought that if you're against the man or the man doesn't like you, you're an ally, that they embraced the inherently fascistic and pro-war, pro-Vietnam Hells Angels and didn't really understand the nuances there. It is very much the same thing here. in many respects. You have people, embracing that without really understanding what they're dealing with. Like, just because it is a country that's on the outs with some sectors of U.S. foreign policy, that means they're an ally against U.S. imperialism. Just because they're treated badly sometimes, not nearly as much as they should be, because they're an ally in the U.S. media, that means that Saudi Arabia is in the pantheon of the good countries fighting the United States. Like, you can't be a scumbag that American media also maligns. Like, that's not possible. And the issue with the comedians was not, for me, and I don't think anybody who criticized it, that they performed there. It was the conditions that they performed there under. It was that they agreed not to take any shots at the government or the society. If they going there and actually challenging that, of course, that would be great. That would be heroic. That would be very courageous. But they agreed specifically not to do that. That was the issue. Not that they performed in Saudi Arabia. And again, I'm going to point out, these people, there's all this debate about, you'll get a lot of the broken peasant minded. How much tax you want them to pay? How much tax you want them to pay? Look, the reason that you tax wealth at a 90% level, as we used to, is not really to fund society. You can get that money other places. It's so that mediocre people like this don't accrue this kind of power, this kind of disproportionate voice. Money buys an inordinate amount of speech. Why should Bill Ackman be listened to? Why should Bill Ackman be listened to? Bill Ackman's hedge fund empire crumbles in less than 3 years from public wrong way bets on Herbalife and Chipotle. This was written in 2018. Bill Ackman, at a time when you had a bull market, 2015, he loses 22.5% on his fund. 2016, 28.04. 2017, 5.08. These are all years that the S&P gained. So is that it? Is that like a little blip in an otherwise unbroken string of triumphs? No, this is 2022. Bill Ackman will repay investors $4 billion after his SPAC fails. So now you'll get some people who will say, when you point things like this out, yeah, but you have to look at the average. You have to look overall. Okay, listen. What if the way we play baseball was that 8 of the players get 3 strikes and one of them gets 15?
Right.
Who's gonna get the most hits? If you or I fuck up like Bill Ackman has fucked up repeatedly, we'd be done. That would be it. When you're in the club, that's not it. They'll always extend you lines of credit. You can always call the people you know. They're not going to let you fall out of the club. Not going to let you fall out of the club. That sets a bad precedent. They let you fall out of the club, maybe they're going to let them fall out of the club next, right? Once you're in the club, you're in the club. These guys get an infinite number of turns at bat. That's Donald Trump. How many times has he gone bankrupt? How many times has he gone bankrupt? He's still rich. The rules that apply to you don't apply to these people. They are not better than you. They're not smarter than you. They're better connected than you. And they're luckier than you. And they're richer than you. And all of those things kind of go together. But you know what? I can't put it as well as Mr. Carlson does.
Who owns all the houses, and why can't kids buy houses? And why are people like Bill Ackman, how is Bill Ackman worth $7 or $9 billion or whatever when he clearly has done not one useful thing? And I actually said that at the last Turning Point event. It's nothing against Bill Ackman. I don't hate Bill Ackman, but he's a symbol. There's so many Bill Ackmans. Like, why is our society awarding the greatest spoils to the people who contribute the least? Like, just speak slowly so I can understand how that works. I say that immediately, you're an anti-Semite for attacking Bill Ackman, who I guess is Jewish. It has nothing to do with it. And Charlie was on this in a way that, you wouldn't want to debate him on it because he actually knew the details. Like, why are we taxing labor at twice the rate of investing? Like, why are we doing that? Shut up, racist or anti-Semite or fill in the blanks.
Exactly. And Bill Ackman and people like Bill Ackman, they don't just own the corporate media, they own most of the social media space at this point as well. And when you see post after post after post of, poor people have to work, poor people have to work, poor people have to work, that's where it's coming from. It's coming from douchebags like this. You want to know why you tax people like Bill Ackman at a 90% rate? To shut them the fuck up, so that mediocre, self-interested enemies of the people, literally enemies of the people, like Bill Ackman, are not on fucking TV every day spouting their ignorant opinions and then going to Saudi Arabia, which last I heard, whatever else was behind it, Israel, generated 15 of the 19 hijackers to go and speak against Zohran Mamdani, who he has smeared obliquely as a terrorist or an enabler of terrorism.
Yeah, and I wish Tucker would just go the final step, because the answer to his question is very,
he's
very
joining
simple.
the ACP, I heard.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, the answer to his question is as simple as it gets. Why do you tax labor at double the rate of investment? Because it's a capitalist system. That's why.
Right.
Because
Right.
capitalism values capital, does not value labor. The
Right.
way you make money under capitalism is not by exchanging your labor for wages. It is by using what capital you have to build more of it. That is the system. That is the design of the system. So, of course, accruing capital, using existing capital to accrue more capital, is going to be incentivized and therefore taxed less than workers get taxed on their wages, because that is the design of the system. And of course, a system that is predicated upon people who already have a lot of money using that money through investment, speculation, etc., to create more money, well, of course, that is going to elevate the most mediocre people, because the system is designed to elevate people who already have a lot of capital.
Exactly.
Right.
And then they close
not
ranks
designed
and
to
protect
reward
each other.
the rags to. It's not designed to reward the go-getter who starts out. See, this is the big lie that they tell. They say, well, under capitalism, you could start with nothing and end up in a mansion. Yeah, 0.0001% of the time you have a genius who has a skill set that collides with the demands of the time. That's what a lot of these tech bros are, to the extent that they're self-made, which many of them aren't. But anyway, yes, it is possible under extraordinarily rare circumstances for an especially smart and talented person to come from the gutter and end up in the Hamptons. Right?
You had that in monarchy.
Right. But that is extraordinarily rare. It's extraordinarily rare. Capitalism rewards people with existing capital. That's how you build more of it. So if you have a system that does not reward the scrappy, sort of industrious, worker, then who does it reward? It rewards mediocre people like Bill Ackman. They're the ones who rise to the top. And then you ask yourself, well, why do we care about what they have to say? Because they're rich, and the system worships the rich. Right? We assume that if you're rich, it's because you must be smart, or you must be savvy, or you must be a good businessman. This is how Donald Trump pitched himself as a good businessman to people. Well, he's got money, so he must be doing something right. No. He started with a lot of money, which under capitalism made it a lot easier to parlay having a lot into even more. And in his case, there's a whole showmanship quality to it. But in Ackman's case, there isn't. In Ackman's, it's simply, okay, this guy, was able to parlay capital into more capital. And so what? He has great wisdom to impart upon us. It's nonsense.
Right. And once you're in the club, they protect you. They don't let you go down. You go down. They'll keep extending you lines of credit and opportunities. You get 15 times at bat. You only have to hit the ball once. For the rest of us, you strike out once, you're done. You're ruined. Right? These people are never ruined because they're in the club, and the club rallies around them when they're in trouble to make sure that they maintain their social status because they don't want to set a precedent. People keep them at that level because they don't want to be in a position where they lose their status. They rig the whole system to protect the whole club.
Exactly. Pardon me. Let's go to Brad Gilbert. Spinfluencers can be AI. Trumpsters can be next to go. A lot of the stuff is AI too. Yes. Enchant Emerson. Hey, Russell, layoffs at Amazon come in threes. Often after gaslighting, they cut you off cold. We're training AI under the lie of efficiency. We're not monkeys. We have talent, but we're feeding the beast. That's right. That is right. How can I grow hair like Keaton? Justice for Aspen. Yeah. Gotta get a wig, my friend. I couldn't even grow hair like this. My hair doesn't grow in like this. My hair just kind of sits like a lump on the top of my head. So even if I grew hair,
I mean, that was pretty much what my hair was like.
Yeah, you had hair like this when you were younger. Yeah, seen the pictures. Do you now realize, as BDF 9987, the value of Sam Cedar and Michael Brooks debunking and dunking on the likes of Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, etc.? Well, sure. I mean, there's value in dunking on Dave Rubin, of course. Michael Brooks used to be very funny dunking on Dave Rubin. So yeah, there's always been value in that. No question. Captain Ace Hawk 1295, thank you for that donation. Appreciate that. Analog Winter, the name's Dobular or called you Russ. Maddening to see people profess being Christian, shitting on less fortunate, and Islamophobia exploding again. Not that it left with Mamdani. Free Palestine. Yep. Thank you, Analog Winter.
I don't give a fuck about your war or your president. I don't give a fuck about your war or your...
Oh, what happened? I thought I took care of that. There it is.
Got it.
007 Angelo says, I tuned in for Russ and Keaton, and this is being hosted by Weird Al Yankovic and Johnny Depp's shipmate from a Pirates movie. Happy Halloween, fellas.
You're just showing your cinema ignorance.
Yeah, exactly. EO Shush says, if my SNAP benefits are cut, I'll have to cut back on Rumble Rants next month and return one of my Cadillacs. Can't decide between the red, black, gold, or the pink one. A real Sophie's choice. Thank you for that. 007 Angelo says, today's YouTube's algorithm flooded my feed with vids of women bragging about how they've scammed the EBT system, one to the tune of $36,000. She ratted herself out by bragging about it online. There have also been a ton of AI videos. In fact, one video is circulating of a woman bragging about scamming the food stamp program that's actually AI. And to the extent that there is scamming, there's some people who obviously will sell the food stamps for cash. And then there are some who, get these stamps through identity theft. That's most of where the fraud comes in to that program. It's very, very difficult to actually trick the government into thinking you're working when you're not. Enchant Emerson Russell, look into the roundtable group when you consider how Zionism and the Balfour Declaration, the system runs deeper than it appears. Milner was a bitch. There you go. Thanks very much. Oh, hold on. Let me take this. Hey, you all right? Here, could you take some of these?
Sure. All right. Give me a second, folks. All right. Michael Castillo. I love your Bible Israel history lessons. Keaton is the instructor aide. Russell is the professor. Well, it depends on the segment, but thank you, Michael. Brad Gilbert. Barbie, I see you're invoking and raise you a squib. Thank you. Ryan Spence 90. Those Blue Jays bats just won't stop. Go Jays. You kind of got gypped, Keaton, not getting that one, because to care less about organized sports, I would have to be dead. Javier. A first. I thought the Vanguard were hosting DD. Very funny. I'm telling you, man. Again, I guess the Gen X thing. I just, Snake Plissken is such an iconic character, like Rick in Casablanca. Like, how do you not see that? GG14Y. I don't know really what Jimmy's overall opinions are on climate change. I think, and I've talked with him about this personally. Like Michael Moore's movie Planet of the Humans, he got some details wrong, which I feel when you're getting into stuff that's that controversial, you can't afford to get anything wrong. So I did have problems with that movie. Like, you really have to steel man your arguments. But did these corporations take that conversation around climate change as an opportunity to push technological solutions that are not going to solve the problem, but that will actually make them a lot of money? And did they make it an issue of personal consumption rather than an issue of, say, the U.S. military? 11 corporations generate 80% of the carbon. So, they want to tell you to make sure to separate out your plastics, and they want to tell you that some of this green technology is going to solve it. But it's a lot of bullshit. Andy Gardner. Patience, everyone. Keaton is a working mom, and if he goes shirtless, he's Russell Brand. Oh, so there was one that clearly I have nothing to say about. They were talking about how well the Blue Jays are doing.
Oh, yeah, man. Blue Jays, I mean, I think they're going to win it. I think last night it was game 5, but it was like a game 7 because I felt like whoever won last night was going to win. If the Dodgers won last night, they got Yamamoto going on Friday. So that would have been bad for Toronto. But because Toronto won last night, now the Dodgers got to beat them twice in their own building. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Canada will triumph, which, I mean, come on. That's poetry. That's poetry. Donald Trump's first year, Canada wins the World Series.
Okay, so should we move on?
Yeah, we'll move on. Right. Sorry,
so that's your piece, right?
Yeah. It was a car seat mishap. My older guys must have accidentally unbuckled Augie's car seat when they meant to unbuckle themselves when I dropped them off at school this morning. So Amanda was going to pick the boys up. She had to get Augie in the car seat, and she couldn't figure out how to do it because everything was unhooked. So I had to step in and fix it like a man. That's right. Like a man. Exactly.
Like the kind of man who's not sitting around all day raging about people getting snapped.
Yeah, like the kind of man who's not triggered by food stamps. That's right.
Actual man.
Yeah, like an actual man.
Actual testosterone.
Yeah. I had to go fix it real quick. All right. Okay. Let's get myself set up once again here. Sorry about that. Boom, 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 boom. That's back. All right, good. All right, folks. So here's another story that just makes you feel like you're taking crazy pills, the way the media frames the breaking of these ceasefires here. First, the Washington Post was very confident that Donald Trump was taking control of the situation. Israelis bristle as Trump makes clear who calls the shots in Gaza truce. Wow, talk about a headline that aged like milk. The Trump administration's aggressive efforts to promote the success of the Gaza ceasefire deal have some Israelis bristling at what they see as an overly intrusive approach that limits Israel's freedom of action and concedes too much to Hamas. Over the past 10 days, a parade of top U.S. officials have passed through Israel, in part to make sure that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu adheres to the terms of the ceasefire agreement as defined by its prime sponsor, President Donald Trump. Well, oh boy, got to eat it on that one. Israel launches strikes on Gaza, claiming Hamas violated ceasefire. So remember the first time that Israel claimed that Hamas violated the ceasefire, that was the explosion in Rafah, which it was later reported was actually Israel rolling over a mine of sorts that exploded. And they lied and said that it was Hamas that violated the ceasefire. Well, here we go again. The Israeli military launched several strikes in Gaza City and other parts of the enclave late Tuesday, rescue workers and health officials said, after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered a forceful response to what he called a ceasefire violation by Hamas. The bombardment, which medics said killed at least 9 people in Gaza, put an additional strain on the ceasefire agreement brokered this month by President Donald Trump. So I love how they say, You know, the fact that you bombed Gaza puts a strain on the ceasefire, right? In normal circumstances, you would say they broke the ceasefire and this is war. Earlier Tuesday, Hamas militants fired a rocket-propelled grenade and sniper fired at troops in 2 incidents in southern Gaza, an Israeli military official said, speaking on the condition of anonymity to discuss the attack. Okay, so no evidence at all provided for this story. Why would you have to speak on condition of anonymity if you're talking about an attack that happened? Again, they made a similar claim about the first breaking of the ceasefire, which ended up being debunked, and they've provided no evidence to substantiate this one. Hamas said in a statement that it had no connection to the shooting incident in Rafah and affirms its commitment to the ceasefire agreement.
Yeah, like why would they do that? Where's the motive?
Where's the motive? Exactly. Where's the motive? Well, the death count went from 9 up pretty quickly to 104 as these strikes continued. Israel's military says ceasefire is back on as death toll from Gaza strikes reaches 104. Again, just read that headline and tell me you are not living in 1984. Israel's military says ceasefire is back on as death toll from Gaza strikes reaches 104. How are you supposed to make sense of this? How are you supposed to make sense of this? Marjorie Taylor Greene can't even make sense of this. She says Israel's military said Wednesday that the ceasefire was back on in Gaza after it killed 104 people, including 46 children, according to local health officials. 46 children. Are these not war crimes? They are indeed war crimes. They are indeed war crimes. And it is a crime against journalism to print a headline, ceasefire back on after strikes kill 104. That is just, that is naked propaganda. So the AP has some video here. Israel's military said Wednesday that the ceasefire was back on in Gaza after it carried out heavy airstrikes overnight that killed 104 people, including 46 children. The strikes, the deadliest since the ceasefire began. There should be no strikes since the ceasefire began. That's what a ceasefire is.
Yeah.
Marked the most serious challenge to the truce to date. It's like you're taking crazy pills. Like, what world am I living in where the news, the paper of record, the AP, the Washington Post, the New York Times is telling me there's a ceasefire, while at the same time they're saying, yeah, they've broken it now, however many times. I think they've bombed almost every day since the ceasefire.
Right.
I think there have been attacks on Palestinians
like every day.
Every day. Yeah. Yeah, if not maybe every single day. Yeah. But anyway.
Wait. When I said to Rappaport, I'm happy about the ceasefire. If Israel would honor it, and the Yentas, you can hear them in the background. Oh my God!
Oh my God!
Oh my God! I couldn't believe I would say such a thing.
Yeah.
Israel isn't honoring the ceasefire. They really live in their own little bizarro world.
Of course. So here's some video. On top of our children or elderly, I pulled my son from under the rubble. I found his head injured and covered in blood. God knows if we will live or not. God is my refuge. It's still dawn and we wake to the sound of airstrikes and people burning. God help us. Are we in a truce? What kind of truce is this? If we were at war, we'd say, okay, it's war, but we're in a truce. Safe, sleeping in safety. This is the flesh and bones of children we're collecting now. How old is he? 1 year. He was 1 year old. We've been searching for him since 4 a.m. He's 1 year old. Do you imagine these people after all this, and then they get a ceasefire, and then this happens? Well, you don't have to imagine. You don't have to imagine, because actually, this is much more resembling the pre-October 7th norm in Gaza than a lot of people might want to believe, which we'll get into in a moment. But let's just first do another game of how it started, how it's going. So here's Donald Trump on October 12th, insisting, despite Netanyahu foreshadowing this exact kind of thing, where there would be continued attacks, insisting that, no, the war is over.
Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister, has not gone so far as to say the war is over. In your view, is the war between Israel and Hamas over?
The war is over. The war is over, okay? Do you understand that?
Mr. President, is the ceasefire going to hold? Are you confident the ceasefire will hold?
Say it.
Are you confident that the ceasefire is going to hold?
I think so. I think it's going to hold. I think people are... a lot of reasons why it's going to hold.
but I think people are tired of it. It's been centuries, okay? Not just recent. It's been centuries. I think.
Yeah. People are tired of it indeed. So that brings us to yesterday. Did Israel give you a heads up before they bombed Gaza? And is it still a ceasefire? Let's hear Trump's answer to this. This is an audio recording from, I guess, Air Force One.
Israel give you a heads up before they bombed Gaza? And is it still a ceasefire if they're stopping?
Yeah, it is. No, they had a sniper, and one of their soldiers were killed, and they did retribution. So we'll see. But yeah, it is a ceasefire. It's back to ceasefire.
But is that?
Oh, now it's back.
It's back to ceasefire.
Now it's back to ceasefire. Okay, now it's back to ceasefire.
Except whenever
now
they decide they want to kill Palestinians.
Right. Yes, exactly. So now we're back to ceasefire once again. No substantiation of that claim about the shooting. The last time they did this, their claim about why the ceasefire was broken was debunked pretty quickly. So here we go. Now, more cope from the media, more spin. U.S. determined to prevent the collapse of the Gaza ceasefire after overnight airstrikes. Again, what world are you living in where a headline like this can be typed in the paper of record? Israel's intense bombardment of the Gaza Strip this week marked the most serious challenge yet for a fragile U.S. brokered ceasefire. Yeah, I'd say it's fragile. I'd say if one side breaks it every day, that's pretty fragile. Over 100 Palestinians were killed, including dozens of civilians, according to Gaza health officials. One Israeli soldier was killed in an attack that helped prompt the fierce Israeli strikes. But by early Wednesday, the ceasefire had been restored almost as quickly as it had unraveled. Wow. Well, that's great news, isn't it? That after the bombing stopped. And so we're going to say that it's been restored. Wow. Isn't that amazing? President Donald Trump defended Israel's actions, but also made it clear that the U.S. expects the broader ceasefire, which began October 10th, to hold. Again, this is the paper of record. This is a paper of record. If someone submitted this to like a city college journalism class, they'd get an F. What are you talking about? Okay, so he approved the strikes that killed 104 people, including 46 children, but also made it clear that the broader ceasefire is expected to hold. What do you mean broader? They killed 100 people. Like, what are you talking about? This is just such nonsense.
Well, it could have been 3,000. So,
yeah, exactly. The chain of events underscored the fragility of the truce between Israel and Hamas after 2 years of war, but also showed how intent the U.S. is on keeping it going. Really? Is that what you get from this? That's the message you take away from this, is that the U.S. is intent on preserving the ceasefire after 104 people are killed, including 46 kids? And the president says, well, yeah, they had to do it. The message you get from that is that we're determined to keep it going? In what world? In what world? It is complete fantasy. BM says, so it's systematic. Whenever they feel like it, they just murder dozens of people in Gaza, and they say, okay, ceasefire is back now. Exactly. Yep. Exactly. That describes the dynamic at the moment. But here's the thing. This, in a way, is a reversion to a pre-October 7th status quo. Now, granted, it's worse because more people are being killed. Right. But the pre-October 7th status quo in Gaza was essentially that Israel can just bomb them whenever they want. Yeah, there's technically a peace, but Israel can just go in and bomb a building whenever they want, and then they'll go back to being peace. This is what occupation is. This is characteristic of daily life in Gaza going back decades. For example, Israel strikes Gaza for the third straight day as West Bank violence grows. Check the date on that, folks. I highlighted it for you. September 24th, 2023. 2 weeks before October 7th, Israel bombed Gaza 3 days in a row. Have you ever heard that mentioned in mainstream media at all? People who want to say the war started on October 7th, yet here you have, they bombed Gaza 3 days in a row, 2 weeks prior to October 7th, 2023. Go back to 2022.
So it's almost like you could argue that helped to cause October 7th.
Right. Exactly. 2022. Go back a year. Israel's Operation Breaking Dawn killed 49 Palestinians. These are their stories. 49 Palestinians, including 17 children, were killed during the 3-day Israeli assault on Gaza from August 5th to 7th, 2022. This was during peace, quote unquote, right? Bombing campaign for 3 days. Let's go back to 2021. Israel's May airstrikes on high-rises. This is back when there was the previous sort of eruption of violence in 2021. Let's go back even further than that. This was featured in Abby Martin's documentary, Gaza Fights for Freedom. Israelis watch bombs drop on Gaza from front row seats. That's right. This is called the Sderot Cinema, informally. Israelis bringing chairs to Hilltop in Sderot to watch latest from Gaza, clapping when blasts are heard. What's the date on that? 2014. So the Onion article kind of has it right here. Israel agrees to go back to killing Palestinians on less frequent basis. Yeah, that's funny because it's true, because that is indicative of the pre-October 7th status quo. And here it is. You can see Israeli and Palestinian deaths and injuries documented by the UN. The left chart is the Palestinian chart. The right chart is the Israeli chart. Look at the thousands of injuries and deaths racking up. This goes back to 2008, 5,590 Palestinians killed between 2008 and 2020. So what you're seeing now, where, there's a ceasefire, except Israel's allowed to break it whenever they want, that's more or less what you had for the past few decades in Gaza. There's a ceasefire. We're not technically at war all the time, but anytime we say there's a terrorist in this building, we want to blow it up. Yeah, we'll drop a leaflet, give you 12 hours to get your shit and leave, and then we blow up the building, right? This is what has happened. This is what has been the norm in Gaza for the longest time. Now, I don't want to minimize what's going on now to say it's just like the pre-October, because obviously this is worse. I mean, you had in those 13-year period, 5,590 deaths. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands killed in these past couple of years, and just 100 were killed in this recent round of airstrikes. So yes, don't make a mistake. This is worse. It's worse by the numbers, but this kind of dynamic where, there's a truce, but we can still bomb you whenever we feel like it and just make up a justification. This has been the dynamic in Gaza going back decades. And to Russ's point, yes, this is why you have violence like the kind that was committed on October 7th, because this is the status quo. The status quo is extremely violent. It's extremely violent. So what we're seeing now, for people to say, well, how can this be happening now? Well, how could this have been happening for decades is the question you need to be asking yourself. How is it that Israel's been able to just bomb them whenever they want and make up a justification after the fact, or in some cases a few hours in advance of the fact, when they send the door knockers? Remember RFK? They send door knockers. They send a warning shot to say, every once in a while that would happen. Although that, as I understand, was discontinued in 2008.
In a way,
when this timeline begins.
The Palestinians are the luckiest people on earth because they bombed all the health infrastructure, so the kids aren't getting vaccinated.
They can't get Tylenol.
They have no Tylenol.
They have no Tylenol. This is all the protecting from Tylenol. Exactly. So, what we're seeing now is horrible, but I think it's important to make the point that, Israel's been able to attack Palestinians with impunity for as long as there's been an Israel, right? And so now we're seeing it on a greater scale, obviously. Now that we are in this so-called ceasefire phase where the numbers are going to be much worse. There's also just much less infrastructure. People are much more vulnerable to these airstrikes because they don't have houses to live in. They're living in fucking tents, right? So the numbers are going to be worse, and I don't want to dismiss that. But the impunity with which Israel can just casually commit grotesque acts of violence, that has been the default in Gaza.
Yeah, I mean, the difference is people are watching now, one. And two, they've educated themselves much more about what's going on there. So it's not the time that you dropped those articles, the time that those articles came out of, most people accepted it's complicated formulation.
Right, exactly.
It's complicated. Nobody believes that anymore. They are going to have a hard time going back to that dynamic, given the changed world opinion and perspective on Israel.
Yes. Yes, and that's why I think it's important. Like now that people come at this with a certain knowledge, I think it's important now at this point to emphasize that no, Israel doing this shit and getting away with it, this has been going on for decades. This has been going on for decades, right?
Yep.
So I think that is important to point out. Okay, let's move right on along here. Let's go to our sponsored read from El Shabooms, who's got a YouTube channel, and it's this project of his, which is a novel and video essay series, which is called The Grifter's Bible, has new episodes premiering every Monday on the El Shabooms YouTube channel. Follow the First Electric Church of Jesus Christ as they combine the bleeding edge of black patents in neuroscience with the state-of-the-art in Michigas to beat the Great Recession. They sell visions of God to the huddled masses of Deep Ellum, Texas, and the money pours in until the local competition, the police, and the U.S. Navy decide to put a stop to it. There's ass whoopings, car chases, and a showdown at high noon on Good Friday in Dodge City. It's sci-fi noir. It's a picaresque thriller. It's a Western from 10 minutes in the future. It's The Grifter's Bible, a film series by El Shabooms with a soundtrack by Monumental Sonic Architecture. A new episode is posted every Monday at youtube.com/@El Shaboom. So please do go and check that out. Okay. Let's see what we got here. We got Leon Scott says, I'm a Christian. Look up Anabaptists. They're the most theologically precise subset of Christian. Notable Anabaptists are Mennonites and Amish. All right. Here you go. Lori and Brightbill. I thought Pliskin and Ginsburg would be a dynamic duo. Thank you. Yes, good one.
That's going to be the third movie they're working on.
Yeah, there you go. Michael Castillo says, Keaton, last night Sandy Koufax looked like he was going to cry as his World Series record for the most strikeouts in a pitching debut was broken by Trey Yesavage. That's right. They kept cutting to him because he was what was he? Was he in the audience? Who was there? Yeah, how old is Sandy? Is Sandy Koufax alive? I guess he is, right? Was he the guy who they kept cutting to? That's interesting. I guess I can't search on my phone. I think something's going on with my phone. But yeah, no, Savage was pretty brilliant.
They're watching us.
Yeah. Hey Russ, Solid Snake is based on Snake Plissken. Oh, the Metal Gear Solid.
What
character?
Is that?
That's a Metal Gear Solid character. It's a video game character.
So how do you know that?
I used to play video games when I was a kid. That's an old character. That's from the Metal Gear Solid franchise. So that was back when I was a child, when I used to play more games. But yeah, that does make sense. Hey, Chump, Jays win. You become our 11th province. Yeah, there you go. Yes. That might be an interesting bet. What's worse is the guy's name that made the video, John Mumbai. Great show as usual. What was the guy's name that made the video? Josh Mumbai. Yeah, who was the guy who's the video on that? The Bible, the Schofield Bible.
Oh, no, it's not Mumbai. Hang on, I'll take it. It's still up in my video. Mumbai. Mumbi.
Look at that, 89. Wow, he looks actually great. Yeah, because I was like, I know they kept cutting to a guy in the audience and watching the game. And then when you mentioned Koufax, I'm like, yeah, I guess that would make sense. But I didn't realize he was still alive. He's 89 years old. He looks pretty good for 89. It looks very good for 89. Stoop Sign says the candidate on door knocking got charged with conspiracy to impede a federal agent and impeding a federal agent. Vote Cat Abu Ghazala, Illinois 9. Yeah, I saw something about that. I have to look into that more, but I know you've been involved there. Sunrise, I'm too tired. Thank you. Socialize the losses and privatize the profits. That's right. Exactly. That is how that goes. Okay. What do we got here? All right. We will move right on along. Okay. So here's a video from an event that Megyn Kelly did as part of her show, where someone in the audience asked her the question what she thinks about Candace Owens asking questions about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And her answer is really quite remarkable. She essentially says, well, the people who are covering it up tell me this is what happened, and I have 100% confidence in that. Let's take a look.
Owens of it all. About the Candace Owens of it all.
Okay.
I didn't know they had open bar at these events. These events are cooler than I thought. Sounds a little sauced.
About the Candace Owens of it all.
Okay.
I love her, and I really do feel like there's potentially truth to what she's saying. What do you think? Is there something nefarious going on?
Are you talking about Charlie's murder? So I don't listen to Candace's show, but I am 100% convinced that Charlie was killed by Tyler Robinson, a crazed leftist who murdered him because he didn't like Charlie's messaging on the trans issue.
Okay, so you don't
why
listen...
did that bead of light suddenly disappear from her forehead?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So you don't listen to anything that Candace Owens has to say. You haven't been paying attention to any of the questions that she's asked or any of the holes that she's poked in the official story. And she has provided receipts for at least some of the claims that she has made. So there's good reason to believe that she's not just, blowing a bunch of hot air. I haven't looked into any of that. But I'm 100% convinced that the government is telling me the truth. And what do I base that on? Well, let's see.
That is my firm belief after having talked to the people at Turning Point, the FBI, the security team that was on the ground, and many others.
Okay, so after talking to the people who are obviously lying and covering this up, I'm convinced that what they're telling me is true. I'm 100% convinced of that. Red-pilled Megyn Kelly, red-pilled no more. Let's take a listen to that one more time.
Issue. That is my firm belief after having talked to the people at Turning Point, the FBI, the security team that was on the ground, and many others.
After speaking with Johnny Cochran and Robert Shapiro, I'm convinced OJ had nothing to do with the crime that they say he did. After my conversations with his lawyers, who insist that he didn't do it, I'm 100% convinced of that.
I've come to that with a good faith basis, and I have nothing that would shake me from it.
Look at how astounding that statement is. I've come to this from a good faith basis, and there's nothing that can shake me from it. Those two thoughts are contradictory. That is a paradox. If you arrive at something in good faith, you can always be persuaded of the opposite. For example, I've said this almost every time we've done a segment on this, that if they bring evidence and they can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Tyler Robinson did this and acted alone, I am 100% open to accepting that as fact. I'd have absolutely zero problem accepting that as fact. I am not the one with a political axe to grind. It is the people who are insisting, despite the web of bullshit they have already spun about this case, that Tyler Robinson acted alone because he had a trans lover and didn't like what Charlie Kirk had to say about that issue. They are clearly the ones with a political axe to grind, since they insisted that that was the motive, essentially, from day one. So if you arrive at a position in good faith, you can always be persuaded of the opposite. There's no such thing as, well, no, I came to this position in good faith and there's nothing that can shake me from it. That doesn't make sense. Those two statements contradict each other. Let's hear it one more time.
And I've come to that with a good faith basis, and I have nothing that would shake me from it. I don't begrudge anybody asking questions, and I understand the controversy around where she's gone with it. But I think it's really kind of a matter of your preference for your broadcaster.
Okay, so that's Megyn Kelly realizing that, you know what, a lot of my viewers also like Candace Owens, and so I can't validate what Candace Owens is saying, but I also can't come on too strong against her because that's going to alienate a good portion of my audience, like the person who just came to my event to ask me this question. So I'm going to now have to punt on this and say, hey, you know what? Yeah, I 100% believe the official story that Candace Owens is poking holes in, but hey, you do you. You do you. It's all good either way. It's all good either way. That is a grifter right there. That is someone who's afraid to split the audience. She's afraid to take a position because she doesn't want to split her audience. Someone as rich as she is and as connected as she is still has to fence it in that way.
I can't
Bad.
speak to Candace's credibility. I'm going to introduce a lot of you to a phrase you might not be familiar with, lug. And I was a lug in my college days, and I spent a summer in Paris. It's a lesbian until graduation. And I actually dated Brigitte Macron. So I know Candace is lying because Brigitte Macron, that wonderful summer, was my girlfriend. So I know she's a liar.
So she's a liar. But you know what? I have a lot of respect for her anyway. And if you like her, then that's great. That's great.
Fine.
Just don't stop watching me, whatever you do. That's what I
don't
really
know
want.
if she should be one of the 2 people that you exclusively get your information from.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But you do you.
I don't begrudge anybody asking questions, and I understand the controversy around where she's gone with it. But I think it's really kind of a matter of your preference for your broadcaster. And, you know, Candace is many people's cup of tea, and she's not other people's, and I'm the same. And I haven't responded well to people demanding that I try to police her speech.
Oh, no. See, I mean, that's someone having it both ways. I mean, that is just a pathetic answer. That is a pitiful answer. First of all, what do you mean? Okay, so I haven't looked into any of the claims she's made, but I know based on the word of Kash Patel and the Turning Point's higher-ups that Tyler Robinson did this and acted alone. What evidence have you been privy to? Because if it's the same evidence we've all been privy to, which is some really nonsensical story about how he got on the roof without the gun or with the gun in his pants and then disassembled the gun and then left the gun in the woods, or whether it's what struck even Matt Walsh and Steve Bannon as a clearly manufactured text message exchange between him and his trans lover, who, by the way, has gone missing. Now, I guess nobody knows where he is now, the trans lover, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, based on that evidence, you're 100% convinced. And I arrived at that in good faith, but nothing can shake that. But hey, look, Candace is not everybody's cup of tea, but it's okay if she's yours. I mean, that is a person who is just afraid to take a position either way.
Yeah, I mean, remember, Megyn Kelly is somebody who actually came out of the corporate media, who the corporate media landscape is now changed in such a way that there's more money to be made going and strolling among the peasants and pretending to be accessible and to respect them. And so that's the grift. She's just playing the grift. She's particularly, I think, because of her corporate media background, I find her particularly bad at that because she's not used to having to do it. She doesn't come out of that background like Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon completely understands how to play on the emotions of his misled audience. She doesn't quite get it. You can see she calculates for a second. Find 2 people you trust. Like, she just pulled that out of her ass.
Right.
Like, she's not a natural dealing with the peasants. She's not really comfortable with these people.
Yeah. No, that definitely comes across as well. China Shill says, frankly, I don't give a shit if there's people scamming the government for an extra $200 a month. Careful, China Shill. They'll throw you in the slammer for that.
For you.
And snap. We will come for you. You've got to get that on the soundboard. We will find you. The benefit to people say that to the super chatters who piss us off.
We've got to overhaul. We got to sit down and overhaul the
soundboard.
The soundboard. Yeah.
The benefit to
bunch
people.
of stuff on there we don't use anymore.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we got to update that. The benefit to people that need it massively outweighs any waste or fraud. Well, yeah, obviously. Well, that's the other peasant-minded thing, to be obsessed with the, couple thousand people who may be taking advantage of it. When, like I said, you want to know the people who are taking advantage of it? It's the executives at Amazon and Walmart.
Go after them.
They're the ones
That's how I always
exploiting
feel
it.
about that. I don't want to hear fuck about that until you go after all of these companies that underpay their workers with the assumption that government benefits will fill in the gap. You go after them, and then we can talk about that.
Right. Exactly. Stoop Sign says, when I worked groceries, these guys copied our coupons. They ended up getting their groceries for free. I'd yell jackpot and give them their free food. There you go. Thanks, Stoop Sign. Kevin G says, oh, Canada, our home and native land, a true patriot love and all our sons command. Go Blue Jays. Is that the actual national anthem? I don't know what the melody of it is, so I'm sorry if I didn't sing that properly. You know?
Oh, Canada.
Oh, Canada. Is that what it is? Yeah, I don't know.
Well, Oh, Canada is the anthem. I'm not.
Yeah, that's the
quite
anthem.
sure.
That's what I meant. What did I say? Did I say something else? Yeah, the national anthem. I just don't know the melody of it. Would you ever have Professor Grover Furr to hear about how the CIA manufactured a massive lie campaign about Stalin and the USSR? Grover Furr. I never heard of that. Is that Tyler Robinson's boyfriend? Grover Furr.
You're talking about
in trouble for that.
They said he cheated at cards, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I never heard of it.
Debunks that about Stalin. He was a card cheat.
He's a card cheat. He cheats at cards. Please explain outfits. I'm getting Kate Bush and Escape from New York. Well, Escape from New York, you got it. Yeah. Sorry for being an asshole. I'm a super chat version of you. Pop my cherry. Love the show. Well, thank you, Captain Ace Dog. No, you can look it up. I'm the Jack Black guy from the Minecraft movie. You know, I have a kid's costume because I have kids. So they're being Minecraft for Halloween. So we always do family theme. So that's who I am. I don't expect people to really understand it. I expect people to understand it's a costume because of the whole get up here. I fart in Israel's general direction. You guys rock. Thank you, Sunny East. Appreciate that. Leon Scott says, not enough is said about the reason Charlie was taken out publicly and dramatically to send a very clear message to the Kellys of the world. Richard Canuck says, what do the Vegas odds makers say about Zoran winning?
The Cuomo East has got very, very excited because, as has probably happened in every political race since the beginning of time, the polls tightened going into the final week, which means that Zoran's lead is only 15 points over Cuomo instead of what it had been over 20. Yeah.
There was another poll that came out today that had him up by 25, that had him up at 50. Yeah. So, I mean,
they got very excited.
Also, people conflate. I mean, there was one poll that had, I think, Mamdani by 10, which was a tightening. But people also tend to conflate now because the betting odds are everywhere, like from Kalshi and Polymarket. People conflate betting odds with polls. They're way different things, right? So your chances to win as a percentage, that's not your polling. That is your chance of victory, right?
Well, I voted yesterday. And I'll tell you, for the middle of the afternoon in Harlem, it was pretty busy. The early voting site was pretty busy.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, the numbers have been big. The early voting numbers have been pretty big, for sure. All right, folks. So we're going to do one more story about Charlie Kirk. This is a pretty interesting development in the Kirk non-investigation, shall we say. Officials' access to FBI files in Charlie Kirk case drew pushback. Interesting. The head of the National Counterterrorism Center examined FBI files in the last several weeks to investigate whether the man charged with assassinating Charlie Kirk had support from someone else, a foreign power, or another entity, according to multiple people with knowledge of the matter. The inquiry by Joe Kent, the director of the Counterterrorism Center, alarmed Kash Patel, the director of the FBI. Mr. Patel and other senior officials believe Mr. Kent was overstepping, treading on FBI responsibilities, and potentially interfering with the investigation and the prosecution of the suspect, Tyler Robinson. But supporters of Mr. Kent said he was doing his job, running down leads and making sure no foreign or domestic groups were linked to Mr. Kirk's death. Now, here's the thing. The office of the DNI, which is Tulsi's office, and Joe Kent answers to Tulsi Gabbard as the counterterrorism czar, or whatever his official title is, head of the National Counterterrorism Center. That is higher than the FBI in the pecking order. So it really doesn't make sense for the FBI director to say that the counterterrorism director is stepping on his toes. Like, those should not have anything to do with each other. Like, the counterterrorism director has a responsibility to see if there were any foreign groups or domestic groups, for that matter, behind this murder. In other words, to see if the plot runs deeper than everybody thinks it does. So for the FBI director to say, whoa, you're stepping on our toes and you're interfering, you are lower in the pecking order than this guy. This would be like Brendan Falone in The Sopranos saying that Tony was stepping on his toes. No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. The DNI is the head of the intel community. In other words, they outrank you as FBI director. That's not to say they control you, but it's very strange that the FBI director would say, whoa, you're stepping on our toes here. Unless, of course, you thought you had the case closed, quote unquote, and you wanted to prosecute one version of the story and you didn't want anything complicating that narrative. The Senate confirmed Mr. Kent as director of the Counterterrorism Center in July. He is one of the closest advisors to Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, and shares her focus on traditional terrorism groups as well as drug cartels, which he argues are a grave threat to the United States. Mr. Patel was troubled that Mr. Kent had gone through FBI material related to the case, according to the people knowledgeable on the matter. Mr. Kent's efforts were a topic at a White House meeting that included Mr. Patel, Mr. Kent, and his direct superior, Ms. Gabbard. Top Justice Department officials, Vice President J.D. Vance, and the White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, were also there, according to several of the people who spoke to the New York Times about the matter. I'm sorry, does this not smell like a cover-up to anybody? I mean, come on. Like, what are you talking about here? So they had a meeting about the fact that this guy was going through FBI material related to the case. They had to bring J.D. Vance in, the Justice Department people in, the Chief of Staff in. It's almost like everybody's trying to get on the same page because there's a trial coming up and they want to just put this to bed really quickly, even if it means undermining the work of your own DNI. These are the people who are so concerned about the safety of the American people. The counterterrorism chief thinks this is worth looking into and you don't. What does that say? What does that say about you? Nothing good. Nothing good. Not good.
Sounds like Kent is the guy who didn't take a turn in Vietnam.
Yeah, exactly. The people interviewed by the Times were granted anonymity to speak frankly about internal dynamics in the Trump administration. The FBI and the Justice Department generally keep tight control over evidence in criminal cases, particularly when they are preparing for a trial in which government documents may have to be turned over to the defense and could be used to poke holes in the prosecution's case. Well, what if the prosecution's case is not good? What if they have a weak case? Because all evidence that they've based on everything we've seen about this, it seems like they have a pretty shitty case. So if they have a pretty shitty case, then wouldn't it be useful to bring more information to light? And again, by shitty case, I'm not saying that Tyler Robinson didn't have anything to do with it. It could be that he was the fall guy. He was a setup. Yeah, he's in on it in some way,
right?
But it's not just him, right? I mean, that could definitely be the case. Now, Candace Owens maintains that he was not on the campus that day, and she's provided receipts for other claims that she has made. So I'm not saying anything in any particular direction, but just so everybody understands, when we talk about the prosecution's case, if the prosecution wants to close this as one guy who acted alone, nothing else to see here, never mind George Zinn, who's ranting like a lunatic after being apprehended for the murder, even though he was the wrong guy. Yeah, this warrants more looking into, and they're trying to shut this guy up. While Mr. Robinson is currently facing only state charges, some administration officials were concerned that Mr. Kent's effort could provide fodder to defense lawyers. Oh, you mean complicating information could fuck up the case against the patsy? That's what that reads as to me. Who could use the notion that more than one person was involved in Mr. Kirk's killing to raise reasonable doubt in the minds of jurors, said those aware of the matter. Yeah, it's his job to determine if there's more than one person. That's why he's the head of counterterrorism. That's his responsibility, is to find out if there was more than one person involved and who those other people may have been. You're saying you don't want him looking into that because you have a trial coming up. Well, then you're the one trying to suppress the truth of the case just because you have a trial coming up that you want to win. Mr. Kent told administration officials that a lower-level FBI official had granted him access to the agency's files, which Mr. Patel was said not to be aware of, according to some of the people interviewed by the Times. In response to questions from the Times, Mr. Patel and Ms. Gabbard released a joint statement that did not address the debate over Mr. Kent's inquiry and sought to portray a united front. So Tulsi Gabbard bends the knee once again. Once again, the FBI and intelligence community, under the direction of President Trump, will leave no stone unturned in the investigation of the assassination of our friend Charlie Kirk. Tulsi Gabbard is, as far as I'm concerned, the worst of this whole lot. And that is not an easy title to win. She's the worst of the lot because she's clearly the one who knows better the most, right? She came out and said Iran was not developing nuclear weapons. She went back on that. Her office of the DNI said that Tren de Aragua was not a threat or an invading army or operating on any systematic level within the United States. As soon as the saber rattling ramped up toward Venezuela, she shut up about that. And now this, she comes up with a milquetoast statement to essentially throw her own guy under the bus there by saying, hey, no, we're all on the same team here. When clearly, there was some kind of fuckery going on here, where the guy above Kash Patel was looking into this too much for Kash Patel's liking. They have a meeting, and now they're raising hell about this guy's investigation. They don't want to give him access to their materials anymore. These are people trying to win a case. They're not trying to uncover the truth. They're acting like lawyers. I mean, the Justice Department, they are lawyers. They are prosecutors. That is by definition what they are. The FBI director is not supposed to be a lawyer. The FBI director is supposed to try and solve the case. It's the prosecutor's job to win the trial. That's why prosecutors and attorneys general are the most vicious people on the planet. They're the worst people on earth. They ruin people's lives for a living because their job is to build a case against you and ruin your life, no matter what the truth is. So it's not a surprise that the Justice Department wants to win the trial. But the FBI director is supposed to be a neutral arbiter in pursuit of the fucking truth. The truth, whatever it is, even if it does fuck up the trial. The trial is not the most important thing here. The truth is the most important thing here. And this is clearly an effort to suppress the truth.
Yeah, it's crazy that they would even make that argument that you're going to complicate the trial. As you point out, that is very much a prosecutor's way of looking at things.
Yeah, that's what lawyers,
that's not your job. Your job is to actually find out what happened here. But of course, there are people who know what happened here and they don't want it to come out. We can only speculate, but it certainly looks that way. And if you look at these fruitcakes, this is why at the time, me and you were somewhat lonely voices pointing out, what do you think Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard will be like in this position, given the history? The past is the best predictor of future behavior. You got crazy eyes Kash Patel. You got a guy who literally wrote a children's book where he is a wizard protecting wise King Donald. Is that somebody you think is going to do anything as the FBI director that is not completely in lockstep with whatever marching orders he gets from the administration?
Right.
Like, why would you think that? And if you don't think that, why would you think him being in that position is a good thing? Because he owned the libs? Because he made some lib tears? Because he called out some libs? Like, why would you think that guy was going to be good in that position? And Tulsi Gabbard is like the stinkiest hoe at the fucking brothel. Like, what did you think she was going to be like? This is somebody who called Donald Trump Saudi Arabia's bitch and then gets up on stage at Madison Square Garden and completely exonerates his entire political history. There is almost literally no statement Tulsi Gabbard has ever made that you cannot find her making the exact opposite statement in regards to what did you think she was going to be like? She has no integrity. She never did. She made that very clear.
Yeah, pretty obvious. And, people don't remember the Venezuela stuff now. I'm surprised that's kind of got lost. And her office of the DNI says, no, there's no evidence to suggest we're being invaded by Venezuelan drug gangs. None.
Right.
None. She didn't say they didn't exist. She didn't say, she just said it's not a military emergency. And nobody's asked her for a follow-up. No, nothing. Once she did a 180 on the Iran nukes, I guess everybody just expected that from her. Pretty sad stuff. We're at 2288 in the YouTube chat. And 1160 on the like column. I even headbanged today. I had to with the hair. I mean, how could I?
I do.
Right?
Yeah,
I had to. I couldn't not do it today with the hair. All right. Let's see here. Yeah, Megyn Kelly isn't red pilled. It's just the blood coming out of her eyes. The blood coming out of her wherever. Yeah. Let's see here. If some techie person in your audience can give a southern twang to the "We will find you." That's right. We will find you. Keaton looks like Weird Al. Yeah, people have said that.
Yeah,
Sparky
little bit.
says the dystopian future is now. Thank you, Sparky. Appreciate that very much.
It is.
All right, let's move right on along. Speaking of dystopia, this is a terrible story.
Yeah, we've been trying to stay on the Sudan story, which is undercovered for various reasons, not the reasons the Zionists would like to tell you, but we will get into that a little bit. Something that's getting more attention right now than it has in the past is the UAE funding of the RSF. So here's a little video here. Look, there are a lot of videos circulating of what's going on in Sudan right now. We can't show them. They're horrible. Mass executions, like real films of people just being gunned down, massive numbers of civilians. There's a little bit of that here that's blurred out. But here we go.
UAE is starving of fascists. Just look at this. And when they're about to receive humanitarian aid, look what happens.
Anyone who's caught trying to get aid in,
boycott the UAE and spread awareness about their war crimes. We all have to stick together.
that was execution right there, which you blurred out. That's why we were able to use it. Human Rights Watch. A flurry of videos shows rapid support forces in Sudan carrying out extrajudicial killings and attacking apparent civilians fleeing North Darfur's capital, Al-Fashir, following the takeover of the city by the RSF. Urgent international action is needed. So they've had that city under siege for many months. We covered that. They actually built a sand barrier around the city so that people couldn't escape, and people were reduced to eating animal feed. It was not fit for human consumption. A lot of people were getting sick and dying just from eating that. So here's, surprisingly enough, I must say, Sky News has been one of the best sources of information on what's going on in Sudan. They have on-the-ground reporters. They've done a lot of good stuff on this.
As the civilians poured into Tawila, so did some army soldiers, who surrendered their arms and took safe passage out of Al-Fashir, leaving close to 200,000 people behind, to face ethnic violence and summary executions at the hands of the RSF. With burnt roads leading out of the city, and so much bloodshed that red-stained streets can be seen from space, after 24 hours of silence, Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan finally addressed the nation.
Everyone is following what happened in Al-Fashir. The leadership there, including the Security Committee, estimated that they should leave the city due to the systematic destruction and killing of civilians it was subjected to.
Insiders tell Sky News that the army accepted an indirect deal with the RSF to facilitate safe passage for their soldiers, leaving civilians in North Darfur's capital to their fate.
This wouldn't be the first time that the army withdraws from key cities in Darfur at critical moments. In the past, we've investigated the army cutting deals with the RSF just as these cities are about to fall.
One of the first towns in North Darfur to fall to the RSF in this war faced similar brutal ethnic violence in the wake of military collapse, with the army abruptly withdrawing from Khartoum's garrison.
All of the army's intelligence withdrew before the attack. Soldiers were meant to be part of the defense.
In North Darfur, we met a commander fighting for Al-Fashir just weeks before it fell. Al-Fashir is the ultimate symbol for us, he says. We tell our soldiers to fight until their last breath. Now, as the RSF celebrates their capture of the entire Darfur region, it's slowly emerging who stayed until their last breath and who left the city behind.
And this is a tweet that came out after the fall of the city. Saham Hassan, a former member of Sudan's parliament who ran community kitchens to feed the hungry and starving in her home city of Al-Fashir, was executed by RSF militiamen earlier today. That's just one of the many horrors going on there. Now, they mentioned how you could see the blood from space. There's the Humanitarian Research Lab at Yale. They've done some very good work on this. And if you look at the picture, they've enlarged it there. You could just see the blood stains there in the street. And you can also see where bodies have been piled up with blood stains next to them. Just absolutely horrible. Says Chris Van Hollen, as we witness horrific scenes in Al-Fashir, the UAE continues arming the RSF, which the U.S. has determined is committing genocide. Enough. We must pass my bill to block arms sales to the UAE until it stops fueling the RSF's war crimes in Sudan. And this is over a Wall Street Journal article. The Wall Street Journal actually did a very good, and as far as I know, and I've been following this story for a couple of years now, this is the most comprehensive mainstream media article to come out yet, really exposing the fact that the UAE is behind the RSF. How UAE arms bolstered a Sudanese militia accused of genocide. Separate reports, including from the Defense Intelligence Agency and the State Department's Intelligence Bureau, show an increase in the flow of material from the UAE to the rebel rapid support forces since the spring, according to U.S. officials familiar with the intelligence. The material includes the advanced Chinese-made drones, along with small arms, heavy machine guns, vehicles, artillery, mortars, and ammunition, the officials said. The UAE has shipped arms into Sudan to shore up the RSF after a string of setbacks that culminated with the militia losing control of the capital, Khartoum, in March. Rearmed, the militia survived that potential turning point in the war and launched a renewed offensive against the government that triggered some of the worst destruction of the 2-year war. The war has killed as many as 150,000 people and left one of Africa's largest countries in a strategically important region on the verge of becoming a failed state. The Biden administration had accused both sides of war crimes and the RSF of genocide and crimes against humanity, including rape and ethnic cleansing. The UAE's shipments of weapons had frustrated U.S. officials hoping to contain the war. The latest round of talks, hosted by the U.S. to arrange a ceasefire, ended Friday in failure. Quote, the war would be over if not for the UAE, kind of like the Ukraine, huh? Said Cameron Hudson, a former chief of staff to successive U.S. presidential special envoys for Sudan. Quote, the only thing that is keeping them in this war is the overwhelming amount of military support that they're receiving from the UAE. The increase in UAE weapons deliveries was corroborated by Libyan, Egyptian, and European officials familiar with the situation. The UAE is betting on the RSF to help protect Emirati interests in Sudan. The country is strategically located on the Red Sea, where the Sudanese government canceled a $6 billion Emirati port deal last year and has vast resources of gold, much of which has historically been exported to Dubai. The UAE has invested billions of dollars in the country. The UAE first delivered arms to the Sudanese faction 2 years ago through Chad, the Wall Street Journal reported at the time. The UAE at that time said the cargo plane sent to Chad had a humanitarian purpose. In recent months, the Emiratis have ramped up flights transporting weapons through Somalia and Libya from where they were transferred to Sudan by road, U.S., European, and Arab officials said. So, yeah, there has been a lot of good reporting on the overall strategic value of Sudan to UAE. And overall, the consensus seems to be, the best analysis seems to be, that they need the farmland because they are not in a fertile area of the world. And also, there are a lot of mineral resources there, gold being the principal one, and that's a main business that they're in. They're trying to establish some kind of an imperial relationship to Sudan to make themselves bigger players in the region, on a par with Saudi Arabia and Turkey. And they're arming this group so that they have their interests protected. That article also mentions that the government, the RSF, to be clear, the rebels, the actual Sudanese government, canceled a port. So they have people in charge that they can control. They're not going to get their ports canceled like that. And what's a little genocide on the way to empire? So Congresswoman Sarah Jacobs, have you heard of her? There are so many of these Congress people, man. Do you know who she is?
She's the one. Yeah, she's the trans one that Nancy Mace made a big deal about the bathroom thing.
Oh, really? Yeah?
I'm pretty sure that's Sarah Jacobs.
Her?
Yeah.
Is that? Yeah.
I want to be clear. I don't want to get her kicked out of a bathroom.
You're going to get her kicked out of a bathroom there.
Yeah.
Tell us in the chat.
No, wait a minute. It's not her. Who's the one?
Yeah, I didn't think so. I didn't think so.
All right.
No, so that's McBride, right?
McBride. Sarah McBride. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. I retract that.
Retract that. Yeah. We're going to get sued.
Yeah. I want Sarah Jacobs to be able to shit in peace.
She's going to go to the bathroom. The security is going to come for her now because of you.
Yeah. They watch us on their phones. The security.
I've never heard of her, man. I'm going to look into whether we can get her. I mean, it's a long shot, but this is good that she's sponsoring this. Apparently, Van Hollen is also sponsoring something. The UAE needs to be held accountable for its arming of the genocidal RSF. That's why I've introduced my Stand Up for Sudan Act that would block sales to the UAE until they stop sending weapons to the RSF. Rashida Tlaib, of course, weighing in on this. I am horrified by the RSF's mass killings of civilians in Al-Fashir, Sudan. We must do everything in our power to stop this genocide, including cutting off all weapons sales to the UAE, who are arming and funding this ethnic cleansing. Now, Ilhan Omar weighed in, and she got a very predictable response from Fredo. Fredo, of course, being Chris Cuomo. Sudan is facing the world's worst humanitarian crisis and a genocide. Tens of thousands dead, 12 million displaced. The images of the RSF seizing Al-Fashir are horrific. The UAE and other arms dealers to the RSF and RSF-aligned militias must be held accountable. So now, what would the most thuggish, most piggish propagandists on earth, how would they respond to a horrific genocide in Africa? If your answer is to make it all about them, you'd be right. You'd be right. Yisrael Chai account. Graphic warning. There has been no news about genocide in Sudan. I mean, except in every single outlet that you could name. I had quite a wide variety of articles to choose from to do this segment. But okay. There have been no news about the genocide in Sudan, and we all know the reason why. These killings are courtesy of the Islamist RSF. The war in Sudan is between the Sudanese armed forces and the paramilitary RSF. The conflict, which began in April 2023, as a power struggle between the leaders of these two groups. Well, you're right about that last part, but you're completely wrong about pretty much everything else. Now, the idea that the media is very shy about representing Islam in a negative light, that's a pretty funny thing to assert. The media, both in entertainment and news, has certainly never been shy to portray Muslims in a negative light, as we saw for several seasons in the deeply Islamophobic show Homeland, which was a big hit on our fair shores. Or more recently, every outlet reported Israeli hostages and Palestinian prisoners, even though 1,700 of the 2,000 people that Israel released were being held with no charges. There are over 200 children in Israeli detention. If those are not hostages, what are they? They took a Palestinian pediatrician that they refused to release in the hostage exchange. Hostage exchange, not prison. Hostage. The Palestinians are hostages. So the idea of these cry bullies claiming that the media is bad for them. Yes, Sudan is criminally undercovered. That probably has more to do with the fact that America is not deeply, directly involved in the region, and what happens in what America is involved in is naturally going to get more coverage. It might also have to do with the fact that the world doesn't give a shit about Africa. Africa generally gets very little coverage. Atrocities in Africa don't get a lot of coverage. It might also have to do with the fact, frankly, that a lot of these killings on the part of the RSF are ethnic, and the ethnos that they're after are black Africans, which certainly the world has much precedent for not giving a flying fuck about, which is also part of the reason they really don't cover Africa. But you know who it's not about? You. Not about you. Right. So Chris Cuomo, he's been going berserk about his granny killing, woman molesting brother going down in flames. It's his whole account is Islamophobia, just unabashed Islamophobia, one after another. Chris Cuomo is just going nuts. The Nepo baby not getting his way is going crazy. Islamists don't want them there or here, he responds. Islamists. Well, that's interesting. So somebody asked, Grok, is the RSF an Islamist movement or made up of Islamists, or does Cuomo here not know what he's talking about? Mecca Hitler responds, the Rapid Support Forces in Sudan aren't an Islamist movement. Their ideology leans towards secular Arab tribalism, and they've actively detained Islamist leaders opposing them. Originating from Janjaweed militias, RSF's conflict with the Sudanese armed forces stems more from power struggles and ethnic tensions than religious ideology, though both sides are Muslim majority. Cuomo seems off base if targeting RSF as Islamists, as evidence shows RSF resisting Islamist influence. This is how deeply ignorant and racist these people are. They impart Islamist motives to anyone who's a Muslim. Right. So would you impart to all Israelis that they're motivated by extremist religious fanaticism? I mean, they're driven by extremist racist fanaticism. Most of them are secular. But this is the picture that they want to paint. If there is violence involving Muslims, they're jihadis, and they have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. I mean, you would think Cuomo, who has spent his career trying to live down the Fredo nickname, would maybe do like, he could have gone to Grok. This guy did, it's not even like he had to do a lot of work to find out he has no idea what the fuck he's talking about. But this is what they do. And the idea of Zionists coming out and saying, oh, yeah, no, there's a bias in favor of Muslims. How's the weather that far up your own ass?
Well, Chris Cuomo is just subtweeting his brother's failing campaign. Like he's clearly just like, blowing these Islamophobic dog whistles to remind his followers, if they live in New York City, that an Islamist is about to become the mayor if people don't vote for his raping murderer brother, right?
Yeah.
So that's clearly what he's up to there. For those who don't know, a subtweet is when you mean your tweet at a person who you don't mention. That's what. So that's what that is.
Right.
That's what he's doing. As for the RSF and the UAE, yeah, obviously we should suspend any arms shipments to them, and that they really are like a burgeoning empire. Misty on her show had Brad Pierce on, who's an independent journalist, for a really great conversation about this, and he talks about how, yes, they are a burgeoning imperial power who really do see Africa as their domain. So yes, this is definitely imperialism in the making, for sure. That's exactly what it is. And you're getting a front row seat to it in Sudan. And so yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer that we should suspend those arms sales.
Of course. But at the same time, they'll say nobody's talking about it. They're talking about it. They're introducing bills to try to stop arms shipments to the UAE, even though we are not directly involved.
Right. Yeah, I can't wait to see Gunther Eagleman's take on the Stand Up for Sudan Act. I wonder what that'll be. See what Tim Pool has to say about that.
Yeah,
See what
I don't
his
think they'll have
contributions
anything
are
to say about it.
to that conversation. Exactly. All righty, folks. Hey, if you would like to support the show, the best way to do so is to become a member. What's going on? Come on. There we go.
It's freaking pouring here. Is it raining up there?
It is raining up here. Not as hard as down there, I don't think, but it is raining up here for sure. So, hey, if you want to become a member, dudissidents.com/Patreon, dudissidents.com/Substack, or dudissidents.com/locals. Those are the member platforms. Membership starts at $5 a month. We are doing Film Club tonight. Phantom of the Paradise is the Film Club episode tonight, and that is complete with your calls. So please, if you would like to sign up, you'll get access to that. You also get access to our weekly Q&As every Sunday night after the show. We also did a post-game extended show for the members last Tuesday with a call-in Q&A. That was a lot of fun. You also get ad-free versions of every live stream emailed to you directly the day after they air on the main platform. So if you want to watch something back without ad interruptions, that is a perk that people have been liking very much. So those are the links there, dudissidents.com/Patreon, /Substack, and /locals. Now I got an email from someone who said that they haven't been receiving emails. Someone said they subscribed at Superscribe. I don't know what that is. I looked into that. That seems to be some AI thing. I don't know if we have an impersonator account over there who's running a subscription service who's not us. I will look into that. I did Google that to see if they have a page. As far as I could look into, they did not have a page with our name on it. But I'll look into it more to make sure people aren't getting scammed. But these are the links. Those three up there. If you're not at Patreon, Substack, or Locals, then you're not getting the real subscriber experience. So we will look in to see if anyone is pulling a scam using our name, because obviously we don't want that. But in the meantime, yes, those are the links right there on the screen. Membership starts at $5 per month, and you guys are the backbone of the show, and so we appreciate the support very much. Okay. Michael Castillo says she sounds sauced up. May I request that as my new soundbite? She does sound sauced up, right? The lady sounded drunk when she was talking to me. I didn't know, is this a slowed down video or whatever? But Megyn Kelly didn't sound slowed down, so I guess it wasn't. Great show, says William Ellick. My two favorite honk keys. I like that. A great show, my honk keys. As always, trust me or two other sources. These OPs never say do your own research. Exactly. It's so effing easy to just fact check. Lazy, LOL. Yeah, William's a couple hours behind, but that's okay. Yes, it is true. And yes, they never corroborate. That's why so much of what you see on X is just absolute bullshit. Just no other word for it. Okay, here we go. We got Take a Pick 1313 says UAE, Qatar, etc. are just Western fiefdoms to allow plausible deniability. We just don't use U.S. soldiers to do this. Yes, thank you for that donation, and thank you for that. Okay, what do we got here? We got some Rumble rants. Goo81, Israel's investigating the grape allegations by soldiers on Palestinian side in Steban. I never know how to pronounce that prison. Not against the perpetrators, but against the whistleblowers who released the video. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if IDF sniped their own soldiers as false flag. Yeah, no, of course not. Have you seen a video regarding Mossad agents saying our own people will go in and fire rockets from Gaza to keep war going?
Yes.
You have seen that? Oh, I have not seen that. Interesting.
Yep.
No, I haven't seen that. Maybe we should cover that. 007 Angelo says, every time Trump says we'll see, does he mean he'll see how far BB can shove his fist up his ass? Yeah, exactly. Trump isn't an alpha. He's proven to be a beta cuck. Exactly. How far will his base put up with this? Exactly. You're on fire. You're on fire, Angelo. Based Angelo. Translation for Megyn Kelly's statements. I don't want to get whacked. I don't want to get whacked. I don't want to get whacked. I think she doesn't want to lose money. I think that's what her thing is. Grover Fur now. China still approves of a Grover Fur interview. Okay. A couple $1,000s circulated into the American economy through people scamming the government is better than the government scamming $40 billion out of the country. Yeah, of course. Of course.
We will interview Grover Fur if he agrees. AI can do this now. We're gonna throw up a Grover Muppet avatar in his square.
Yeah.
And its mouth will move as he's talking.
Yeah, there you go. That would be fun. All right, let's move on. We got one more story on the day, folks. One more story.
One more. U.S. fails to make big dent in UN vote calling for end to UN embargo. But what really makes this a fun story is Mike Waltz being told by the Cuban ambassador to go home and get his fucking shine box. This is what it's come to, folks.
Many of you, frankly, some as recently as this morning, tell us privately that since the regime cares so much about this vote, that you just want to appease it. You just want to kind of go with the flow and go with the crowd. That's what you tell us privately. But, colleagues, let me suggest today that you do something different this year. The United States and the Trump administration...
To be clear, with COVID year being an exception, for 33 years, the UN has overwhelmingly been voting to lift the embargoes on Cuba. This is what he's talking about.
Wants to set the record straight when it comes to this resolution and to correct the fake news, the misinformation, and this false reality the regime seeks to create year after year with this vote. The facts are this is an illegitimate and brutal regime that seeks to cast itself as the victim of aggression while plainly describing itself as, quote, the enemy of the United States. It's located just 90 miles off our shore. It conspires and it collaborates with enemies and adversaries of the United States against our interests. The facts are that this regime supports terrorist organizations around the globe. It is allowing mercenaries to fight in the war in Ukraine. It's propping up the Venezuelan regime, and it aids cartels. The facts are that these cartels that it props up are trafficking people, drugs, and weapons, and is aiding and abetting instability in our hemisphere. They undermine democracies in our hemisphere.
I'm very sorry to interrupt, but there's a point of order from Cuba.
Sure. Madam President, yes.
Yes, we have to give the floor to the point of order and the representative of Cuba.
The permanent representative of the United States not only lies by substantially deviating from the topic, but also speaks in a rude and arrogant manner against your presidency, against the dignity of this assembly and the member states. He does so with uncivilized, crude, and coarse behavior. That is not acceptable in this distinguished and democratic forum. Mr. Walsh, this is the United Nations General Assembly. This is not a signal chat, nor is it the House of Representatives.
Come and get your fucking shine box.
Nicely done, sir. Oh, whoops, sorry about that.
See, they know signal chat. They know signal chat. People say, the Cubans are stuck in the past. Now he knows what signal chat is.
He knows what it is. They use it from their 57 Chevys, which honestly look awesome. I swear to God, during that brief period where Obama made it easier to travel there, I said, you better do it now. You better do it now. It's not going to last. And sure enough. So somebody tweeted out here in response to Waltz's batshit speech. While U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Mike Waltz, is accusing Cuba of being an illegitimate and failed state from his comfortable seat in New York, the Cuban authorities have effectively evacuated 650,000 people in the eastern provinces to prepare and protect them from Hurricane Melissa. Well, I mean, that's nothing we wouldn't do 6 times before breakfast. Oh, FEMA didn't answer thousands of calls from flood survivors, documents show. 2 days after deadly Texas floods, the agency struggled to answer calls from survivors because of call center contracts that weren't extended, of course, by Secretary Ducklips, that old dog killer herself, Kristi Noem, didn't extend those contracts, Kristi Noem. So who's the failed state exactly? Who's the failed state? These people are evacuating over 500,000 people, and they can't even answer the phone calls of people who have suffered from a flood. Or how about that? Trump just denied North Carolina's request for FEMA relief from Hurricane Helene, calling it unwarranted. This is after he held a whole press conference using those people as props against the Biden administration. And, he got their votes. He doesn't need them anymore. So which is the failed state? Which one is the failed state? Without being sanctioned up the wazoo by the world's greatest economic and military power, we're treating people this way. The United Nations General Assembly overwhelmingly called for an end to a U.S. economic embargo on Cuba, despite lobbying by Washington that included sharing an accusation that up to 5,000 Cubans are fighting alongside Russian forces in Ukraine. It adopted a resolution with 165 votes in favor, 7 against, and 12 abstentions. The U.S. convinced Argentina, that's real hard with the 40 billion, right? Hungary, North Macedonia, powerhouse of Europe, North Macedonia, Paraguay, and Ukraine to join it, and Israel in voting against the resolution. Alexander is rolling over in his grave. Last year, the General Assembly adopted the resolution with 187 countries voting in favor. The United States and Israel were the only countries that voted against it, while Moldova abstained. I guess that's what they call the coalition of the willing right there. Cuba has rejected as unfounded the U.S. claims and released information on legal proceedings against Cubans for mercenary activity in Ukraine. We got Americans who go over there to fight. We don't even we don't prosecute those people, or IDF soldiers for that matter, who are American, who commit war crimes. Communist-run Cuba has openly sided with its ally Russia in the conflict, while also calling for peace talks. The UN vote carries political weight, but only the U.S. Congress can lift the Cold War-era embargo. The 193-member UN General Assembly has adopted the resolution annually for more than 3 decades, except for 2020 during the COVID pandemic. Quote, "The blockade is a policy of collective punishment," Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez told the Assembly before the vote. It flagrantly, massively, and systematically violates the human rights of Cubans. It makes no distinction between social sectors or economic actors, unquote. Cuban Vice Foreign Minister Carlos Fernandez de Ocasio told Reuters in an interview in Havana following the vote that the debate had proven that relatively few countries were susceptible to mounting U.S. pressure against Cuba. The United States consistently has voted against the UN resolutions since 1992, but abstained for the first time in 2016 under former President Barack Obama as Washington and Havana forged a closer relationship. Washington then returned to opposing the resolution under President Donald Trump's first administration. Trump also rolled back nearly all measures taken by Obama to ease the embargo and improve ties between the United States and its old Cold War foe. The United States continued to vote no under Trump's successor, President Joe Biden's administration. You want the rainbow fascism or you want the traditional classic flavor? Those are your choices, folks. That's what's on offer. So this is pretty funny, man. And I just wanted to take a look at some of these claims, which are particularly absurd at this moment, particularly coming from this administration. The first victims, this is the U.S. mission of the UN, the first victims of the illegitimate communist regime of Cuba are the Cuban people. It's time for the civilized world, oh, is that what we're calling it now, to stop looking away and demand that Cuba provide its own citizens with food, medicine, and electricity, end its use of forced labor, and free its 700 political prisoners. Communism destroys lives and countries. Enough is enough. Well, if communism is doing that to Cuba, what's our excuse exactly? So let's take a look at some of these claims and their counterpart on our own fair shores. As far as starving the people goes, the USDA literally deleted its contingency plan for funding SNAP so that it wouldn't have to keep feeding people when SNAP expires. We are literally about to intentionally starve people, literally. How about political prisoners? We found that more than 170 U.S. citizens have been held by immigration agents. They've been kicked, dragged, and detained for days. And, you know, a lot of people would argue that a lot of people in our prisons, particularly for marijuana crimes, are political prisoners. There was, I can't remember who worked for Nixon who admitted that the purpose of the war on drugs was to lock up black people. And from the Children's Defense Fund, as far as providing for people goes, we have 11 million children in poverty. 1 in 6 children under 5 lives in poverty. The idea that we would be accusing anybody of starving their people, not providing for their people, is absolutely absurd. Medicine? You're going to talk about providing medicine? Cuba not only has one of the best healthcare systems in the world, they send doctors around the world to provide free healthcare for impoverished nations. What are we doing? Health insurance premium spikes imminent as tax credit enhancements set to expire. You're going to tell Cuba to provide medicine to its people. Really, really. As far as forced labor goes, we have that right here. We have that right here. Prisoners in the U.S. are part of a hidden workforce linked to hundreds of popular food brands. If you want to look this up, Robin McDowell, she specializes in this subject. She has done a great series of articles in the AP exposing what is, by any measure, modern-day slavery. And very often these people, like at Angola, are literally working on the old plantations, where in some cases, literally their forebears worked as slaves. The 13th Amendment, I have the book right behind me here, The New Jim Crow. gets into how they use the 13th Amendment to essentially keep slavery going. So the idea that we're going to be accusing Cuba of that is pretty rich. So here's Max Blumenthal. The U.S., Ukraine, Israel, and Javier Milei versus the world on strangling Cuba. Yes. This going underground. For the 33rd year, the UN General Assembly overwhelmingly voted to condemn and end the U.S. barbaric economic blockade against Cuba, which has impoverished the island nation for decades. Cuba's foreign minister has stated the blockade has cost $1.6 trillion in losses of international trade and tourism since the blockade began. 165 nations voted to condemn the blockade. Only the U.S. and a handful of vassal states voted against the UN resolution. The U.S. stands isolated on the global stage once again, as we usually are. And Justine Haig, with support from 165 countries, the UN has voted to condemn the U.S. blockade of Cuba for the 33rd time. Tell me, who's the rogue state here? Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. We're it. We are the rogue state. And as the old saying goes, pride goeth before a fall. When you look at this, it's always hard to imagine the historical moment you're in being temporary. It's always particularly difficult to imagine powers that seem absolutely unassailable falling. Look at this. A nation that has the leadership position that we do, that has clearly lost the consent of the led, it's only a matter of time before a nation like that falls. The entire world is just waiting for an opportunity to take us down. They're just waiting for the right moment of weakness to unite and take down the United States. The world hates us. And yes, it's very hard if you've been raised in this propaganda bubble to really understand that we are the bad guys at this moment in history. We are the bad guys. We are part of a coalition of evil nations like the UAE, like Malay. I'm not talking about the people in the nations, but I'm talking about the leadership. We are the greatest obstacle to peace and cooperation in the world today. Xi, at the conference they're at right now, just gave a speech talking about a future world built more around cooperation and mutual support between countries. What are we doing? We're doing it. We're barking this fucking country that is no threat to us since 1960 because they have a different political and economic system. If this system is so bad and so frail and so weak, why do you have to embargo the country? Won't it just collapse under its own weight? The fact that, I said this about Venezuela too, the fact that these countries are surviving while we're collapsing without having all these embargoes, while having every advantage possible that we could have, including the exorbitant privilege of having the dollar, the world's reserve currency, which we could just print whenever we need more money. No other country can do that. And we're still falling apart. We're still collapsing. Our people don't have health care. Our people don't have food. Our children are living in poverty. 1 in 6 children are living in poverty. So which is the successful system? How weak is this system that things are that bad in this country, while these countries have been able to weather this kind of aggression, in Cuba's case, for what, 60 years, 70 years?
Well, yeah, we won't leave them the fuck alone. I mean, that's the thing. Like, so many of these countries, all they want to do is live. All they want to do is do their thing. And we will not let them. And yet, by so many metrics, they are more successful than we are. By so many metrics. I mean, when it comes to healthcare and healthcare outcomes, yeah, Cuba exports doctors around the world. They don't send soldiers around the world to kill people. They
to
send
say
doctors
give
around
them
the world.
medicine, the balls.
Yeah. They sent aid after Katrina. They sent aid to New Orleans, to a country that hates them, to a country that's done nothing but sabotage them. You know, they don't hold it against the American people the way the American people hold so much against so many people around the world. Yeah, so no, it's of course embarrassing, and the coalition is a very small coalition. As you could say, the United Nations has been overwhelming in its support for lifting the embargo for decades. Cuba developed a COVID vaccine that's actually not an mRNA vaccine. They actually developed the old-fashioned kind of vaccine, the ones that stop you from getting the thing that you vaccinate against, right? They did that. And they didn't need a warp speed, right? They did that. So, yeah, no, look, I mean, we have no legitimacy whatsoever. It's comical at this point. I mean, it's laughable at this point to see people who do live in that bubble of propaganda. And that's partly because we do this for a living, so we pay closer attention than almost anyone. But yeah, I mean, it's transparently obvious. It's transparently, and the hostility from this administration in terms of actually now trying for a second time in 2 terms to do a regime change operation in Venezuela. And from the looks of it now, that's going to expand at least into Colombia, if not further. Yeah, no, I mean, it's pretty obvious, who the agitators are. It's not a mystery at all. All right. Let's take some Rumble rants here. Stoop sign, Kash Patel alarmed. Kash Patel has resting alarmed face. Yes, that's true. He always looks alarmed. That's right. Regarding the UAE, RSF in Sudan was also used in Yemen during Yemen genocide, and same training and funding of Israeli and Palestinian militias in Gaza is also funded by UAE, as they wear the same gear. Thank you. Boycott anything UAE, including overpriced Dubai chocolate and dates. They are ruled by an authoritarian Muslim Zionist. They are attacking Sudan as the military coup replaced normalization government. Also boycott UAE as they illegally annexed the Yemeni island and helped Israel in their genocide. Darfur, if you grab a gray enough sand, you get gold in your hand. I'll recommend getting Leith Maroof. Thank you. Sudan doesn't need to worry. USA will stop it. USA would never allow a genocide. Oh, wait, never mind. Thank you, 007.
Exactly.
Lastly, in response to Israel, to Yasser al-High, RSF is being helped by Israel as well, because Israel also gives weapons to the UAE and have Israel arms factories in Dubai. Thank you, Goo. Albu Kid says, when everyone else's cars won't work from EMP or nuclear weapons, Cuba will have running cars unaffected by such things. Exactly.
That's true.
Pearl Squeen says, I'm so late. I've just finished work. Don't mean to be rude, Keaton, but what are you dressed as? A Democrat trans woman. Thank you. Pearl Squeen says, actually, is Russell a trans Dan Crenshaw? Thank you. No, I'm this guy. So to give the reference, this is the Jack Black guy in the Minecraft. So that is my character.
Well, you didn't really go all out on that, did you?
Well, I got the shirt. I mean, what? He wears a fucking turquoise thing. This is the official
it's like
turquoise
gray,
thing.
though. He's got gray hair.
Well, he's got gray hair. Like I said, I didn't highlight the beard. I didn't do that yet. I will do that for Halloween. But yeah, I didn't actually highlight the beard. But yeah, that is as close as I came. All right, let's see here. You absolutely need to do a sound clip of Fredo saying, I'm smart, whenever you quote Chris Cuomo. Yeah, that would be funny. Told you guys, Hungary is a miserable, shameful country. Sparky says, pride cometh before the fall. Thank you, Sparky. Appreciate that. 007 says, Russ, I'm 58, dude. I'm sure we grew up on almost all the same movies. Not so fun fact, Zionist Jamie Lee Curtis was the voice in the beginning of Escape from New York. Kurt Russell is a badass. Snake is
really?
iconic.
That was her?
Sorry, I did not know that.
I didn't know that either.
Did not know that. All right, well, I know this. That's our show. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Thanks to the mods for keeping the peace in the chat, to the YouTubers, and to the Rumblers. Before we go, I do want to just plug John Coa's new single, Boy in the Bubble. Came out with a new graphic about that. John Coa has a forthcoming single. It's The Boy in the Bubble. It's the cover of the great Paul Simon tune, the first track on his famous Graceland album. And John does a great cover of that. We played that on the Rumble Switch the other night. It's a stark, humane take on a classic about technology and the stories we tell. So if you want a place to start with his upcoming 34-song album, A to Z, songs from the tape deck, start here. Links at dudissidents.com/Coa, or you can search John Coa on Spotify. So go and check out that new cover single. It's great. I think you'll like it a lot. So please do support our dissident artists. John Smith says, love you guys. Happy Halloween. Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Thanks, everybody, for being here today. Appreciate you all. Emails will go out for the film club tonight. That starts at 8 p.m. You'll get those emails shortly, so make sure you pay attention to that. And then we will see you back here on the main show. That's right. On the main show Sunday night. Be safe out there. Happy Halloween, everybody. Thanks for being here this afternoon. Be safe and be well.
Happy Halloween and courage.
Please clap.